Hello, everyone, and welcome back to English in Moments. I'm Elena, your host for today's lesson. And today, I want to start with a question, a real one. Have you ever read the definition of a word in the dictionary and thought, yes, I understand what that means, and then heard a native speaker use it and felt something completely different, something the definition did not prepare you for, a weight, a warmth, a particular quality of feeling that arrived the moment the word landed. That gap between the definition and the feeling is exactly what today's lesson is about. Because here is something I have come to believe deeply after years of teaching English. Fluency is not the ability to use words correctly. Fluency is the ability to feel them the way a native speaker feels them. To know not just that threshold means a doorway, but that it carries something beyond that. The sense of standing between one thing and another. The feeling of a moment that has not yet resolved. The slight catch in the breath that comes with being on the edge of something. That is what native speakers feel when they hear the word threshold. And until you feel it too, you are always translating rather than truly speaking. Today, we are going to fix that together. We are covering 300 English words that carry more than their definition. These are not rare words. Many of them you already know. But what you may not yet have is the full weight of them, the texture, the emotional resonance, the way they land differently depending on context. The reason a native speaker might choose this word over a synonym, not because it is more accurate, but because it feels more true. 12 categories, 25 words each, 300 words in total. For every word, I will give you the definition, yes, but more importantly, I will give you what the word carries, what it feels like, what it suggests beyond its surface meaning, and a natural example sentence so you can hear it living in real context. Say each example out loud after me, every single time. Because these words only become yours when you speak them, when you feel them in your own mouth, when they stop being foreign and start being familiar. Grab your pen and paper. We are going to go somewhere together today that most English lessons never go. Let us begin. Category 1, words of light. These 25 words all relate to light, but not just physical light. They are used to describe clarity, understanding, beauty, hope, and the quality of moments that feel somehow illuminated. Native speakers reach for these words when ordinary language does not quite capture what they are trying to say. Word 1, luminous. Definition: giving off light, glowing, what it carries, something more than brightness. A luminous quality suggests an inner light, something that seems to glow from within, rather than reflecting light from outside. Used for faces, moments, ideas, and pieces of writing that seem lit from the inside. Example: her performance was luminous. Every person in the audience felt as though she was speaking directly to them alone. Repeat: luminous. Word 2, radiant. Definition: sending out light or heat in all directions. What it carries: joy that is visible, warmth that reaches outward. A radiant person does not simply look happy. They share their happiness involuntarily. It spills. Example: she walked into the room looking radiant. Whatever had happened in the days before it, it did not show. Repeat: radiant. Word 3, dappled. Definition: marked with spots or patches of light and shadow. What it carries: the particular beauty of light filtered through leaves, of summer afternoons, of gentle movement. Dappled is one of those words that is almost impossible to say without picturing something beautiful and calm. Example: we sat in the dappled shade of the old oak tree and did not say very much at all. Repeat. Dappled. Word 4. Glimmer. Definition: a faint or wavering light. What it carries: hope that is small but real, something not yet visible but present. A glimmer is too fragile to call a promise, but too real to dismiss. It is the beginning of something that might become much more. Example: after months of nothing, there was finally a glimmer of progress, enough to keep going. Repeat. Glimmer. Word 5. Incandescent. Definition: emitting light as a result of being heated, extremely bright. What it carries: intensity beyond ordinary. An incandescent person is not just angry or passionate, they are burning with it. The word suggests something that cannot contain itself. It is about feeling at its most extreme and most visible. Example: she was incandescent with fury when she discovered what had happened. The whole room felt it. Repeat. Incandescent. Word 6. Glint. Definition: a small flash of light. What it carries: a moment, brief, sharp, surprising. A glint is gone almost as soon as it arrives. It is used for eyes that show intelligence or mischief, for metal catching the sun, for the split second before something reveals itself. Example: there was a glint in his eye that told me he already knew the answer before I had finished asking the question. Repeat. Glint. Word 7. Translucent. Definition: allowing light to pass through but not clearly transparent. What it carries: delicacy, fragility, a quality of being almost but not entirely revealed. A translucent person lets some light through. You can see something of them, but not everything. The word carries vulnerability. Example: the skin of her hands had grown translucent with age. You could see the faint blue lines beneath. Repeat. Translucent. Word 8. Burnished. Definition: polished by rubbing until bright and smooth. What it carries: the result of long effort. A burnished quality suggests something that has been worked on over time until it shines. Not born bright, but made bright through patience and care. Example: the autumn light gave the fields a burnished golden quality that I have never quite been able to describe to anyone who was not there. Repeat. Burnished. Word 9. Ethereal. Definition: extremely delicate and light, in a way that seems not to belong to the material world. What it carries: otherworldliness, a quality that seems too beautiful or too fragile to be entirely real. Ethereal things exist at the edge of what you can hold. They belong to a different register of experience. Example: the music had an ethereal quality that made the whole room go quiet in a way that felt almost reverent. Repeat. Ethereal. Word 10. Phosphorescent. Definition: luminous without combustion and without perceptible heat. What it carries: mystery. Something that glows on its own, in darkness, without explanation. There is something uncanny and beautiful about phosphorescence. It suggests a light that does not need the sun. Example: the bay was phosphorescent that night. Every wave broke in a soft blue light, and we stood at the water's edge, not speaking. Repeat: phosphorescent. Word 11, aureate. Definition: made of gold, having the color or brilliance of gold. What it carries: richness, warmth, and a slight formality. Aureate light is not just yellow. It is the particular golden quality of late afternoon sun, of old photographs, of something precious. Example: the cathedral was filled with an aureate light at that hour, pouring through the stained glass in long, slow columns. Repeat: aureate. Word 12, flickering. Definition: shining unsteadily, with small, quick movements. What it carries: uncertainty. Something that is present but not yet stable. A flickering hope, a flickering flame, a flickering moment of connection. It is beautiful precisely because it might go out. Example: the candle flickered in the draught from the open window. Neither of us moved to close it. Repeat: flickering. Word 13, resplendent. Definition: attractive and impressive through being richly colorful or sumptuous. What it carries: glory that is impossible to ignore. Resplendent things demand to be looked at. They are not just beautiful, they are magnificent. The word carries a sense of ceremony and occasion. Example: she arrived at the event resplendent in deep red. Every head in the room turned. Repeat: resplendent. Word 14, iridescent. Definition: showing many colors that change when seen from different angles. What it carries: the impossibility of being pinned down. Something iridescent is different every time you look at it. It changes with the angle of observation. It is elusive, shifting, and endlessly beautiful because of it. Example: the surface of the soap bubble was iridescent. For 1 second, it held every color. Then it was gone. Repeat: iridescent. Word 15, lambent. Definition: light that moves or plays lightly on a surface without burning. What it carries: gentleness. Light that touches rather than blazes. A lambent quality is present but soft. It does not overwhelm. It illuminates quietly. Example: the lambent glow of the evening fire was enough to see by. We did not need anything else. Repeat: lambent. Word 16, pellucid. Definition: translucently clear, easy to understand. What it carries: a quality of transparency that is also beautiful. Pellucid water, pellucid writing. Something that you can see all the way through and find beautiful rather than exposed by the seeing. Example: the water in that bay is pellucid. You can see the sand and the stones 20 feet below the surface. Repeat: pellucid. Word 17. Scintillating. Definition. Sparkling or shining brightly. Brilliantly clever or lively. What it carries. Brilliance in movement. A scintillating conversation is not just intelligent, it is alive. It crackles and sparks. It produces light through friction and speed and the collision of minds. Example. The evening was genuinely scintillating. I came home more energized than I had been in months. Repeat. Scintillating. Word 18. Argent. Definition. Silver-colored. What it carries. The cold brightness of moonlight, of winter, of something precious that does not warm. Argent light is beautiful, but it does not comfort. It illuminates without heat. Example. The argent light of the full moon made the whole garden look like something from another world. Repeat. Argent. Word 19. Halcyon. Definition. Denoting a period of time in the past that was idyllically happy and peaceful. What it carries. A lost golden time. Halcyon days are always remembered, never present. The word carries both joy and grief. The joy of the memory and the ache of knowing it is gone. Example. Those halcyon summers of childhood, when every day felt endless and nothing required us to be anywhere at all. Repeat. Halcyon. Word 20. Refulgent. Definition. Shining very brightly. What it carries. A formality of radiance. Not just bright, but overwhelmingly, undeniably bright. A quality that cannot be looked at directly. Used when ordinary words for brightness feel insufficient. Example. The refulgent afternoon sun turned the river into something that looked like liquid gold. Repeat. Refulgent. Word 21. Penumbra. Definition. The partially shaded outer region of a shadow. What it carries. The in-between. The edge of darkness. The place where light and dark negotiate. A penumbra is not fully in light and not fully in shadow. It is the most interesting and most uncertain place. Example. He lived in the penumbra of celebrity, known enough to be recognized, not famous enough to lose his privacy entirely. Repeat. Penumbra. Word 22. Lustrous. Definition. Having luster. Shining softly and clearly. What it carries. A quality of refined, quiet beauty. Lustrous things do not announce themselves. They reward attention. They are noticed rather than noticed at first glance. Example. Her hair was thick and lustrous, the kind that made you think of health and sleep and untroubled mornings. Repeat. Lustrous. Word 23. Gleaming. Definition. Shining brightly, especially after cleaning. What it carries. The particular satisfaction of something cared for. A gleaming surface suggests effort and attention. It is not just clean, but luminously, noticeably clean. Something restored to its best self. Example. The kitchen was gleaming. She had been up since 5 and every surface showed it. Repeat. Gleaming. Word 24. Twilight. Definition. The soft, glowing light from the sky when the sun is below the horizon. What it carries: endings, the in-between time. Twilight carries a particular emotional quality in English. It is both beautiful and melancholy. Something is ending. The day is not yet done, but it is no longer fully itself. Example: they sat on the porch in the twilight without needing to say anything at all. The day had been enough. Repeat. Twilight. Word 25. Illuminating. Definition: helping to clarify or explain something. Providing light. What it carries: the particular pleasure of understanding arriving. An illuminating conversation or book does not just give you information. It changes how you see. It lights up something that was previously dark. Example: the documentary was genuinely illuminating. I knew the broad facts, but I had never truly understood the human story behind them. Repeat. Illuminating. 25 words of light. And already you can feel how much more each of these carries beyond its dictionary definition. These are the words that make a sentence feel like a painting. Let us keep going. Category 2. Words of time. These 25 words all relate to time, but not to clocks or calendars. They describe the felt experience of time, how it moves, how it stops, how it stretches or compresses, how it is remembered, how it is lost. Word 26. Fleeting. Definition: lasting for a very short time. What it carries: the preciousness of brevity. A fleeting moment is not just short. It is beautiful because it is short. The word carries both the moment and its imminent disappearance. You notice a fleeting thing precisely because you know it is leaving. Example: there was a fleeting moment of complete silence after she finished speaking. Then the applause began. Repeat. Fleeting. Word 27. Ephemeral. Definition: lasting for a very short time. What it carries: more philosophical than fleeting. Ephemeral things exist in full knowledge of their transience. Cherry blossoms are ephemeral. Youth is ephemeral. The word asks you to consider impermanence itself, not just the brevity of a specific moment. Example: the exhibition explored the ephemeral nature of beauty. Everything on display would be gone within a year. Repeat. Ephemeral. Word 28. Immemorial. Definition: originating in the distant past beyond memory or record. What it carries: the weight of deep time. Something immemorial predates not just living memory, but recorded history. It suggests a continuity so long that it becomes almost sacred. Example: the ceremony had been performed since time immemorial. Nobody alive knew when it had begun. Repeat. Immemorial. Word 29. Lingering. Definition: lasting or taking a long time to end, leave, or disappear. What it carries: the persistence of something after it should be gone. A lingering feeling, a lingering doubt, a lingering scent. Something that refuses to leave, sometimes comforting, sometimes troubling, always present when it should perhaps be past. Example: There was a lingering sadness in the house, even after everyone had gone home. You could feel it in the rooms. Repeat. Lingering. Word 30. Momentous. Definition. Of great importance or significance. What it carries. The awareness that a moment matters while you are inside it. Momentous things are not just important in retrospect. They are felt to be important in real time. The word carries the weight of history happening. Example. It was a momentous occasion. You could feel that everyone in the room understood they were part of something they would describe later in life. Repeat. Momentous. Word 31. Perpetual. Definition. Never-ending or changing. What it carries. Something beyond mere duration. Perpetual things are not just long, they are endless by nature. A perpetual state of anxiety, perpetual motion. The word carries either the comfort of permanence or the exhaustion of something that will not stop. Example. She seemed to exist in a perpetual state of mild amusement at everything around her. Repeat. Perpetual. Word 32. Transient. Definition. Lasting only for a short time. What it carries. Impermanence that is accepted rather than mourned. Transient things pass through rather than staying. The word is more neutral than ephemeral. It describes things that are simply not meant to last. Example. The pleasure of a perfect meal is transient. That is part of what makes it pleasurable. Repeat. Transient. Word 33. Imminent. Definition. About to happen. What it carries. Tension. Anticipation with an edge of dread or excitement. Something imminent has not yet arrived, but you can feel it coming. The word changes the emotional temperature of a sentence. Example. There was a feeling of imminent change in the office. Nobody said it out loud, but everyone could sense it. Repeat. Imminent. Word 34. Protracted. Definition. Lasting for a long time or longer than expected or usual. What it carries. Weariness. A protracted process is not just long, it is exhaustingly, drainingly, beyond reasonably long. The word carries the frustration of something that should have ended by now. Example. After a protracted negotiation that had gone on for months, both sides were too tired to celebrate the agreement. Repeat. Protracted. Word 35. Enduring. Definition. Continuing over a long period of time. Lasting. What it carries. Admiration. Enduring things have survived what should have destroyed them. An enduring friendship. An enduring legacy. The word suggests resilience and the particular beauty of things that persist. Example. What struck me most was the enduring warmth of their relationship after everything they had been through together. Repeat. Enduring. Word 36. Suspended. Definition. Temporarily prevented from continuing. Hanging. What it carries. A particular kind of stillness. A suspended moment is a moment held in place. Time paused, breath held. The normal movement of life momentarily stopped. It can feel like grace or like dread, depending on what follows. Example. There was a suspended silence after he finished speaking. Nobody moved. Nobody knew what to say. Repeat. Suspended. Word 37. Nostalgic. Definition: experiencing a sentimental longing for the past. What it carries: a particular bittersweet ache. Nostalgia is not just missing something. It is the awareness that what you miss cannot be recovered. It is love directed backward in time, beautiful and painful in equal measure. Example: something about that song made her deeply nostalgic. She could not hear it without being 22 again, briefly. Repeat. Nostalgic. Word 38. Contemporaneous. Definition: existing or occurring at the same time. What it carries: connection across time. Two things happening at the same moment, perhaps without knowing it. The word carries the strange magic of simultaneity, lives and events unfolding in parallel. Example: it was contemporaneous with some of the most turbulent events in the country's history, though its author never mentioned them. Repeat. Contemporaneous. Word 39. Timeless. Definition: not affected by the passage of time or changes in fashion. What it carries: a quality beyond trend. Something timeless was never quite of its era and therefore cannot become outdated. The word carries a quiet authority, as though the thing in question exists in a different relationship to time than ordinary things do. Example: the design was timeless. It would have looked right in any decade since it was made. Repeat. Timeless. Word 40. Vestige. Definition: a trace of something that is disappearing or no longer exists. What it carries: archaeology of the recent. A vestige is all that remains. It is proof that something existed, but it is not the thing itself. There is a particular melancholy in vestiges, the outline left where something used to be. Example: there was not a vestige of the old building left. Only a slight depression in the ground suggested anything had ever stood there. Repeat. Vestige. Word 41. Premature. Definition: occurring or done before the usual or proper time. What it carries: the particular sadness of timing. Something premature arrives before the world is ready for it, or before the person is ready to receive it. The word carries both loss and the question of what might have been different with better timing. Example: it would be premature to celebrate. There is still a long way to go, and anything could happen. Repeat. Premature. Word 42. Eventual. Definition: happening or existing at a later time, especially after a long time. What it carries: patient certainty. The eventual outcome is not in doubt, only the timing. The word carries the quiet confidence of someone who knows how the story ends, even if the middle is still being written. Example: his eventual success was never really in question. What nobody could have predicted was how long it would take, or what it would cost him. Repeat. Eventual. Word 43. Anachronistic. Definition: belonging to a period other than the one portrayed. What it carries: something out of time. An anachronism is not just old, it is wrong for its moment. The word can carry affection or critique depending on context. An anachronistic person might be charmingly old-fashioned or dangerously stuck. Example: his manner was so anachronistic that you half expected him to produce a pocket watch at any moment. Repeat. anachronistic. Word 44. Precipitous. Definition: dangerously high or steep, done suddenly and without careful consideration. What it carries: the vertigo of speed. A precipitous decision is not just fast, it is dangerously fast. The word carries the feeling of the ground falling away, of moving too quickly to see where you are going. Example: the precipitous decline in their relationship had shocked everyone who had seen them just weeks before. Repeat: precipitous. Word 45. Unfolding. Definition: gradually developing or being revealed. What it carries: a sense of narrative in motion. Something unfolding is a story being told in real time. The word creates the feeling of watching something happen, present, progressive, not yet resolved. Example: they watched the unfolding situation with a mixture of anxiety and something uncomfortably close to fascination. Repeat: unfolding. Word 46. Recurrent. Definition: occurring often or repeatedly. What it carries: pattern. Something recurrent is not random. It returns. It has a rhythm, even if an unwelcome one. A recurrent dream. A recurrent worry. The word suggests that something has not yet been resolved. Example: there was a recurrent quality to her anxiety, the same fears returning in different forms throughout her life. Repeat: recurrent. Word 47. Interim. Definition: in or for the intervening period. What it carries: temporariness that knows it is temporary. An interim arrangement is accepted as provisional. It has its own dignity because everyone understands it is not the final answer. Example: the interim solution worked well enough that nobody was particularly eager to replace it. Repeat: interim. Word 48. Impending. Definition: about to happen, imminent. What it carries: dread with certainty. Unlike imminent, impending has a slightly darker quality. It tends to be used for things that are expected and not entirely welcome. An impending storm. An impending confrontation. Example: the impending arrival of the report made the whole team uneasy. Nobody was sure what it would say. Repeat: impending. Word 49. Perpetuate. Definition: make something continue indefinitely. What it carries: responsibility for continuation. To perpetuate something is to keep it alive, and the word is often used for things that perhaps should not be kept alive. A perpetuated myth. A perpetuated injustice. The word quietly asks whether continuation is appropriate. Example: she was determined not to perpetuate the patterns she had grown up with. That determination took everything she had. Repeat: perpetuate. Word 50. Elapsed. Definition: of time, having passed. What it carries: the simple, slightly melancholy fact of time having moved on. Elapsed carries a quiet weight. It does not judge. It simply notes. Time has passed. Whatever was in that time is now behind you. Example: 5 years had elapsed since they had last spoken. Standing face to face again, it felt like both an eternity and no time at all. Repeat. Elapsed. 50 words and 2 full categories completed. And I hope you can already feel how different these words are from vocabulary on a list. Each one carries something that the definition alone cannot contain. Let us continue into Category 3. Category 3. Words of connection. These 25 words describe the space between people, the invisible threads of relationship, understanding, recognition, and belonging that make human life what it is. Word 51. Affinity. Definition. A natural liking for and understanding of someone or something. What it carries. A connection that is discovered rather than created. Affinity is not built. It exists and is recognized. The word suggests something almost magnetic, 2 things that belong together. Example, they had an immediate affinity. Within 10 minutes of meeting, it was clear they would know each other for a very long time. Repeat, affinity. Word 52. Kindred. Definition. Similar in kind, having similar feelings, interests, or character. What it carries. Recognition. The relief of finding someone who understands without explanation. A kindred spirit does not need to be taught who you are. They already know. Example. She had spent years in rooms full of people where she felt entirely alone. And then she found this group and recognized immediately that they were kindred. Repeat, kindred. Word 53. Resonance. Definition. The quality of being deep, full, and reverberating. What it carries. Meaning that continues after the moment has passed. When something resonates with you, it does not just affect you in the moment. It carries on vibrating. It finds something inside you that was already there. Example. The poem had a resonance that surprised her. She had not expected to be moved by it. She read it 3 times. Repeat. Resonance. Word 54. Communion. Definition. The sharing or exchanging of intimate thoughts and feelings. What it carries. A depth of connection that goes beyond ordinary conversation. Communion is not just talking. It is a meeting that feels almost sacred. 2 people genuinely present to each other in a way that is relatively rare. Example. They sat together for 2 hours in a quiet communion that neither of them would have been able to explain to someone who had not been there. Repeat. Communion. Word 55. Solidarity. Definition. Unity arising from common interests, objectives, or standards. What it carries. Strength through togetherness. Solidarity is not just agreeing. It is standing together, choosing to be counted among those who are going through something. The word carries both warmth and courage. Example. The response from colleagues was immediate. Whatever they thought of the decision, their solidarity with her was not in question. Repeat. Solidarity. Word 56. Tenderness. Definition. Gentleness and kindness. What it carries. A quality of care that is willing to be vulnerable. Tenderness is not just gentle. It involves exposure. To be tender is to care openly, without protection. It is one of the bravest forms of love. Example. He spoke about his father with a tenderness that made the whole room go quiet. You could hear how much he had loved him. Repeat. Tenderness. Word 57. Rapport. Definition. A close and harmonious relationship in which there is mutual understanding. What it carries. The ease of being with someone. Rapport is what you feel when a conversation flows without effort, when you do not need to perform or translate, when the other person meets you where you are. Example. She built rapport with clients more naturally than anyone else in the team. They trusted her before the meeting was half over. Repeat. Rapport. Word 58. Empathy. Definition. The ability to understand and share the feelings of another. What it carries. Presence. Empathy is not sympathy. It does not feel sorry from a distance. It enters. It imagines. It sits with someone inside their experience rather than looking at it from outside. The word has become almost sacred in English. Example. What she offered was not advice or solutions. It was empathy. Pure, undivided, present. And it was exactly what was needed. Repeat. Empathy. Word 59. Belonging. Definition. The feeling of being accepted and comfortable in a particular place or group. What it carries. One of the deepest human needs expressed as a single word. Belonging is not just being present somewhere. It is being genuinely wanted and genuinely at home. Its absence is one of the most painful experiences a person can have. Example. For the first time in years, she felt a sense of belonging. Not just accepted, but genuinely, warmly part of something. Repeat. Belonging. Word 60. Reciprocity. Definition. The practice of exchanging things with others for mutual benefit. What it carries. The balance that keeps relationships healthy. Reciprocity is the recognition that giving and receiving must flow in both directions. When it is absent, something in the relationship begins to wither. Example. What she valued most in a friendship was reciprocity. She did not keep score, but she noticed when the balance was consistently off. Repeat. Reciprocity. Word 61. Intimacy. Definition. Close familiarity or friendship. What it carries. The willingness to be known. Intimacy is not just closeness. It is the particular closeness that comes from being seen fully and not turning away. It requires both openness and trust in equal measure. Example. The intimacy of the conversation surprised her. She had not expected to talk about things that mattered quite so quickly. Repeat. Intimacy. Word 62. Reverence. Definition. Deep respect for someone or something. What it carries. Awe with love in it. Reverence is not just respect. It is respect that has been deepened by something close to wonder. You revere what you consider sacred, or what you believe to be beyond ordinary. Example. She spoke of her teacher with genuine reverence, the kind that had not diminished with time or distance. Repeat. Reverence. Word 63. Convergence. Definition. The process or state of coming together at a point. What it carries. The magic of separate things meeting. Convergence is used for ideas, relationships, and lives that were traveling separately and then, at a particular moment, arrive at the same place. It carries a sense of design, even when it is accidental. Example: their convergence at that particular moment in both their lives seemed, in retrospect, almost inevitable. Repeat: convergence. Word 64. Reciprocal. Definition: given, felt, or done in return. What it carries: the satisfaction of something returned in kind. A reciprocal feeling is not just shared, it is reflected. It comes back, and the knowledge that it comes back is its own form of comfort. Example: the affection was reciprocal. Both of them had simply been waiting for the right moment to say so. Repeat: reciprocal. Word 65. Fellowship. Definition: friendly association, especially with people who share one's interests. What it carries: the warmth of shared purpose. Fellowship is more than friendship. It implies a bond formed through something common, through work, or belief, or shared difficulty. It is the connection that forms when people are going through something together. Example: there was a genuine fellowship in that group that you could feel the moment you walked into the room. Repeat: fellowship. Word 66. Longing. Definition: a yearning desire. What it carries: love directed at something absent. Longing is desire that cannot immediately be satisfied, and often cannot be satisfied at all. It is the ache of wanting what is not here, one of the most universally human feelings. Example: she listened to the music with a longing she could not entirely explain. Something in it made her miss a place she had never been. Repeat: longing. Word 67. Solace. Definition: comfort or consolation in a time of distress. What it carries: the particular relief of being less alone in something painful. Solace does not solve the problem. It makes the problem more bearable. It is what you find when you need comfort and something or someone provides it without needing to fix anything. Example: she found solace in long walks and the same 3 albums she had been listening to since she was 19. Repeat: solace. Word 68. Kinship. Definition: blood relationship, the sharing of characteristics. What it carries: recognition without explanation. Kinship is the feeling of understanding someone or being understood by them in a way that seems to precede the relationship itself. It does not always require blood. It requires resonance. Example: she felt an immediate kinship with the writer whose book she was reading. It was as though the pages had been written specifically for her. Repeat: kinship. Word 69. Coalescence. Definition: the process of coming together to form one mass or whole. What it carries: the beauty of separate things becoming a single thing. When ideas or people or events coalesce, something new is formed that could not have existed without the coming together. The word carries a sense of creative emergence. Example: the project had started as 3 separate ideas. Somewhere in the process, they coalesced into something none of them had individually imagined. Repeat: coalescence. Word 70. Mutualism. Definition: a relationship between organisms that benefits both parties. What it carries: the elegance of genuine partnership. Mutualism is not transaction. It is the state of two things being genuinely better because of each other. The word has moved from biology into the language of human relationship. Example: their creative partnership was a kind of mutualism. Each brought out something in the other that did not exist without the collaboration. Repeat: mutualism. Word 71. Cherish. Definition: to protect and care for lovingly. What it carries: active love. To cherish something is not just to love it. It is to hold it carefully, to be aware of its value, to make choices that protect it. The word implies awareness of what could be lost. Example: she had learned to cherish the ordinary mornings, coffee before the house woke up, the particular quiet of that hour. Repeat: cherish. Word 72. Reconciliation. Definition: the restoration of friendly relations. What it carries: the particular beauty of return after rupture. Reconciliation is not the same as forgiveness. It is the step that follows forgiveness, the moment of coming back, of choosing to continue. It requires courage from both sides. Example: the reconciliation took years and was never simple, but it changed the texture of both their lives when it finally came. Repeat: reconciliation. Word 73. Symbiosis. Definition: interaction between two different organisms that are interdependent. What it carries: the deeper form of partnership. Symbiosis is not just mutual benefit. It is interdependence. Each party needs the other. The word has entered everyday English to describe relationships of genuine mutual necessity. Example: the symbiosis between the two departments was the real reason the company worked. Neither functioned well without the other. Repeat: symbiosis. Word 74. Attuned. Definition: receptive to and able to perceive something, in harmony with. What it carries: sensitivity as a form of care. To be attuned to someone is to notice them, to be aware of their frequencies, to adjust yourself to what they need without being told. The word suggests deep listening. Example: she was remarkably attuned to the moods of the room. She knew when to speak and when to be quiet long before anyone else had read the situation. Repeat: attuned. Word 75. Endearment. Definition: a word or phrase expressing love or affection. What it carries: the small intimacies of language. Terms of endearment are what we call each other when we are close, the names that exist only in the private vocabulary of a relationship. The word itself carries warmth. Example: the terms of endearment he used for her were entirely their own. Nobody outside the relationship would have understood them. Repeat: endearment. 75 words. 3 categories complete. You are building a vocabulary not just for speaking, but for feeling. Let us continue with Category 4. Category 4. Words of loss. These 25 words describe what it means to lose something: a person, a time, a possibility, a version of yourself. These are some of the most important and most underused words in the English emotional vocabulary. Word 76. Grief. Definition: deep sorrow, especially caused by someone's death. What it carries: the full weight of love that has nowhere to go. Grief is not just sadness. It is love made homeless. The word is one of the heaviest in the English language, and native speakers use it with full awareness of that weight. Example: she had not expected the grief to come in waves. She had thought it would arrive and then gradually leave. It did not work that way. Repeat. Grief. Word 77. Bereft. Definition: lacking something or feeling a great loss. What it carries: a particular kind of emptiness. To be bereft is not just to have lost something. It is to be left holding the space where that thing was. The word carries both the loss and the aftermath, the hollow that remains. Example: after he left the room, she sat for a long time feeling entirely bereft. She had not known until that moment how much she had relied on his presence. Repeat. Bereft. Word 78. Elegy. Definition: a poem of serious reflection, typically a lament for the dead. What it carries: beauty in mourning. An elegy is not just a sad piece of writing. It is the art form of grief. The word suggests that loss can be honored by being transformed into something beautiful, that beauty and sorrow are not opposites. Example: his speech at the service was an elegy, not just for the person, but for an entire way of life that had ended with her. Repeat. Elegy. Word 79. Wistful. Definition: having or showing a feeling of vague or regretful longing. What it carries: a gentle ache. Wistfulness is not sharp grief. It is a soft, quiet sadness. The sadness of looking at something beautiful and knowing it is either over or beyond reach. It is the most tender form of loss. Example: she looked at the photographs with a wistful expression, not sad exactly, just aware of distance. Repeat. Wistful. Word 80. Desolation. Definition: a state of complete emptiness or destruction. What it carries: the landscape of profound loss. Desolation is grief that has changed its surroundings. It is the state in which even the physical world seems to reflect and confirm the emptiness within. It is one of the most complete words for suffering in English. Example: he walked through the empty house in a state of complete desolation. Every room was full of her absence. Repeat. Desolation. Word 81. Forlorn. Definition: appearing sad or lonely, especially from being deserted. What it carries: a helpless quality of sadness. A forlorn person has not just lost something, they have been left. The word suggests abandonment as well as sadness. A forlorn hope is one that has very little chance of being realized. Example: the dog sat by the door in a forlorn way that made everyone in the house feel guilty for leaving. Repeat. Forlorn. Word 82. Lament. Definition: a passionate expression of grief or sorrow. What it carries: grief expressed. A lament does not just feel the loss, it speaks it, sings it, writes it. The word suggests that grief needs expression in order to move. that the act of lamenting is itself part of grieving. Example, the song was a lament for something much larger than personal loss. It mourned an entire generation and its particular burden. Repeat, lament. Word 83, rueful. Definition, expressing sorrow or regret, especially in a wry way. What it carries, the wry quality of having been taught a lesson. Rueful regret is self-aware. It knows it brought this on itself. It is not self-pitying. It has humor in it. The rueful smile is the most honest and most complicated of smiles. Example, he gave a rueful smile when he thought about how certain he had been. He had been very certain and very wrong. Repeat, rueful. Word 84, hollow. Definition, having a hole or empty space inside, without significance. What it carries, emptiness that was once full. A hollow feeling is the absence of something that used to be there. The word is more painful than simply empty because it implies there was previously something to lose. Example, the victory felt hollow. After everything it had cost, she had expected to feel something more than this. Repeat, hollow. Word 85, dissolution. Definition, the closing down or ending of an assembly, partnership, or official body. The action of dissolving. What it carries, endings that unmake what was made. Dissolution is the process of something coming apart that was once whole. It carries a formal dignity, not explosive but progressive. The quiet process of something ceasing to be. Example, the dissolution of the partnership was handled with more grace than anyone had expected. Both of them were grateful for that. Repeat, dissolution. Word 86, irretrievable. Definition, not able to be recovered or put right. What it carries, the finality of some losses. An irretrievable situation cannot be fixed. It can only be accepted. The word carries the particular weight of things that are genuinely over, of doors that have been closed too long to reopen. Example, by the time they spoke honestly with each other, the damage was irretrievable. The conversation came years too late. Repeat, irretrievable. Word 87, mourning. Definition, the expression of deep sorrow for someone who has died. What it carries, grief in its active form. Mourning is what grief does when it moves. It is the process of loss rather than just the feeling. And in English, mourning carries both the deep personal grief and the cultural rituals around it. Example, she was still in mourning in ways that were not visible from the outside. The process took much longer than people assumed. Repeat, mourning. Word 88, absence. Definition, the state of being away from a place or person. What it carries, presence felt through its opposite. In English, absence does not simply describe something not being there. It describes the space left by what was there. Absence is the shape of what is missing. Example, the absence of his voice in the room was something she noticed every day for the first year. Repeat, absence. Word 89, Fading. Definition: losing color, light, or strength gradually. What it carries: the slow disappearance of something. Fading is loss in slow motion. It is the gradual diminishment of something you can watch happening but cannot stop. It is, in some ways, more painful than sudden loss because the goodbye is so long. Example: the memory was fading. She could no longer quite remember the sound of his voice, and the knowledge of that loss unsettled her deeply. Repeat. Fading. Word 90. Remnant. Definition: a small remaining quantity of something. What it carries. What survives. A remnant is proof that something existed, even if almost all of it is gone. It is both melancholy and hopeful, the evidence of something that once was still present enough to be held. Example: she kept only a remnant of what had been a large collection, but those few pieces meant more than all the rest combined. Repeat. Remnant. Word 91. Ache. Definition: a continuous or prolonged dull pain, a yearning desire. What it carries: constant, low-level pain, physical or emotional. An ache is not sharp, it is sustained. It is the background hum of loss or longing. The word carries both the physical and the emotional without separating them. Example: there was an ache in the thought of it, not sharp but persistent, the kind of sadness that stays. Repeat. Ache. Word 92. Severed. Definition: put an end to a connection or relationship, typically in a sudden way. What it carries: the violence of rupture. To sever something is to cut it. The word does not describe a gentle ending. It describes a break that is sharp and complete. Something that was connected is now irrevocably not. Example: the relationship had been severed so cleanly and so suddenly that she still could not quite believe it. Repeat. Severed. Word 93. Wane. Definition: decrease in vigor, power, or extent. Gradually decline. What it carries: the natural process of diminishment. Waning is not failure, it is change. The moon wanes. Enthusiasm wanes. Power wanes. The word carries the philosophical acceptance of cycles and the inevitability of decline. Example: her enthusiasm for the project had begun to wane by the third month. She could feel it happening and could not entirely prevent it. Repeat. Wane. Word 94. Fracture. Definition: a break or crack in a hard object or material. Break or cause to break. What it carries: damage that changes the structure. A fracture is not just a surface scratch, it goes through. A fractured relationship has a crack in its foundation. The word suggests that repair is possible, but that the original wholeness cannot be fully recovered. Example: the incident had caused a fracture in the friendship that was visible even after the surface had been smoothed over. Repeat. Fracture. Word 95. Resigned. Definition: having accepted something unpleasant that one cannot avoid. What it carries: peace made with difficulty. Resigned acceptance is not happy, but it has stopped fighting. The word carries both the exhaustion of the struggle and the quiet of having let it go. Example: she was resigned to the outcome by the time the decision was announced. She had known for weeks what was coming. Repeat. Resigned. Word 96. Unravel. Definition: investigate and solve a mystery. Begin to fail or collapse. What it carries: the slow undoing of something that was held together. Something that unravels does not explode. It comes apart thread by thread. The word is used for both the positive unraveling of a mystery and the heartbreaking unraveling of a relationship or plan. Example: the plan began to unravel in the third week. Small things at first, then larger ones, until the whole thing was unsalvageable. Repeat. Unravel. Word 97. Void. Definition: a completely empty space, not valid or legally binding. What it carries: emptiness at its most complete. A void is not just empty, it is the absence of everything. The word is used for the experience of grief or loss that has become so total that it feels like an absence of reality itself. Example: for a long time after, there was simply a void where that part of her life had been. She did not know what to put in its place. Repeat. Void. Word 98. Dissolution. Definition: decomposition. The action of formally ending a partnership, marriage, or other arrangement. What it carries: the formal process of things becoming undone. What makes dissolution different from ending is the formality, the process, and the awareness that what is dissolving was once deliberately formed. Example: the dissolution of the firm was handled quietly and professionally, but everyone who had worked there felt the weight of it. Repeat. Dissolution. Word 99. Diminished. Definition: made smaller or less, made to seem less impressive. What it carries: the experience of being less than you were. Something diminished has lost part of itself. A diminished person does not stand quite as tall. The word is gentle enough to be kind and honest enough to be accurate. Example: she left the meeting feeling diminished in a way she could not immediately explain. Something in the room had done that to her. Repeat. Diminished. Word 100. Threshold. Definition: a strip of wood or metal at the base of a doorway, a point of beginning. What it carries: the liminal moment, the space between what was and what will be. Standing at a threshold is one of the most charged experiences in human life, the moment before everything changes. The word is used for physical and metaphorical doors with equal power. Example: she stood at the threshold of something she could not yet name. Behind her, everything she had known. Ahead, nothing she could predict. Repeat. Threshold. 100 words, 4 categories. We are a third of the way through this masterclass. Take a breath. Let the words settle, and let us continue with Category 5. Category 5. Words of change. These 25 words describe the process of things shifting, transforming, evolving, and becoming something different from what they were. These are the words that capture life in motion. Word 101. Metamorphosis. Definition: A change of the form or nature of a thing or person into a completely different one. What it carries: total transformation. Not just change, but the becoming of something entirely new. The word carries both the beauty and the difficulty of profound change. The caterpillar does not know it is becoming a butterfly. Example: the metamorphosis in her confidence over 3 years was remarkable to anyone who had known her at the beginning. Repeat. Metamorphosis. Word 102. Transmute. Definition: change or alter in form, nature, or substance. What it carries: the alchemy of change. To transmute is to change at the level of substance. The word carries something almost magical, the idea that one thing can genuinely become a fundamentally different thing. Example: she had learned to transmute her anxiety into energy. It was not comfortable, but it was useful. Repeat. Transmute. Word 103. Evolve. Definition: develop gradually, especially from a simple to a more complex form. What it carries: the dignity of gradual becoming. To evolve is not to change suddenly. It is to become slowly, over time, through experience and adaptation. The word carries patience and process. Example: his understanding of what mattered had evolved considerably since his 30s. He barely recognized the priorities of his younger self. Repeat. Evolve. Word 104. Pivot. Definition: turn on, or as if on a central point. Change direction or focus quickly. What it carries: decisive change of direction. A pivot is a deliberate turn. It acknowledges that the previous direction was not working and commits to a new one. The word carries both agility and courage. Example: rather than continuing to push against the problem, she pivoted to a completely different approach. It worked immediately. Repeat. Pivot. Word 105. Recalibrate. Definition: calibrate again. Revise one's standards or expectations. What it carries: the wisdom of adjustment. To recalibrate is to return to the original instrument and check whether it is still measuring accurately. The word is used for both technical and emotional adjustment, the process of resetting to what is real. Example: after the setback, she took 2 weeks to recalibrate. She came back with different expectations and a clearer sense of what actually mattered. Repeat. Recalibrate. Word 106. Dissolution. Definition: the process by which something changes from a solid to a liquid. What it carries: transformation through loss of form. To dissolve is to lose your previous shape in order to become part of something else. In emotional language, the word carries both loss and release, the giving up of a defined form. Example: her resistance to the idea dissolved gradually over the course of the conversation. By the end, she could not remember exactly what she had been resisting. Repeat. Dissolution. Word 107. Inflection. Definition: a change in the form of a word, a change in the pitch or tone of a voice. What it carries: the point at which direction changes. An inflection point in a story or a life is the moment at which the trajectory genuinely shifts. The word is borrowed from linguistics and mathematics, but carries enormous weight in life narrative. Example: looking back, she could identify the inflection point exactly. One conversation, one decision. Everything before it and everything after it were different stories. Repeat. Inflection. Word 108. Transmogrify. Definition. Transform, especially in a surprising or magical way. What it carries. Transformation with a sense of wonder or absurdity. Transmogrify is a word with delight in it. It suggests not just change, but surprising, perhaps slightly ridiculous, definitely unexpected change. It is used with affection. Example: the derelict space had been transmogrified into something extraordinary. Nobody who had seen it before would have believed it. Repeat. Transmogrify. Word 109. Erosion. Definition. The gradual destruction of something by natural forces. The gradual wearing away. What it carries. Slow, invisible change. Erosion works over time. You do not notice it happening. You notice it when it has happened. The word is used for the gradual wearing away of confidence, of relationships, of certainties. Example: the erosion of trust had been so slow that neither of them had noticed it until there was almost none left. Repeat. Erosion. Word 110. Reconstitute. Definition. Build up again from parts. Reconstruct. What it carries. The work of rebuilding. To reconstitute something is to bring it back together from its component parts. The word suggests that what has been broken apart can be assembled again, though not always into exactly what it was. Example: after the restructure, it took the team almost a year to reconstitute itself into something that functioned properly. Repeat. Reconstitute. Word 111. Fluidity. Definition. The property of a substance that enables it to flow freely. The quality of being fluid in behavior or situation. What it carries. Adaptive movement. Fluidity is the quality of being able to change shape without losing substance. The word carries admiration. Fluid people and situations adapt rather than break. Example: the fluidity with which she moved between roles was remarkable. She seemed equally comfortable in all of them. Repeat. Fluidity. Word 112. Rupture. Definition. Break or burst suddenly. A break or tear in something. What it carries. Sudden and violent change. A rupture is not gradual. It happens fast and it changes everything. The word is used for relationships, beliefs, institutions, and bodies with equal force. What ruptures cannot go back to being what it was. Example: the rupture between them was sudden and total. One conversation and a relationship of 20 years was over. Repeat. Rupture. Word 113. Shift. Definition. Move or cause to move. A slight change in position, direction, or tendency. What it carries. The most universal word for change in English. Shift can be small or enormous. A shift in tone, a seismic shift. The word carries movement in all its registers. Example: something had shifted in the way they spoke to each other. It was subtle, but it was there. Repeat. Shift. Word 114. Reformation. Definition: the action of reforming an institution or practice. What it carries: change from within. Reformation implies that the structure is worth keeping. It is the institution that needs to change, not everything about it. The word carries both the hope of improvement and the acknowledgement of what is worth preserving. Example: the reformation of the organization took longer and required more difficult conversations than anyone had anticipated. Repeat: reformation. Word 115. Watershed. Definition: an event or period marking a turning point in a course of action or state of affairs. What it carries: the before and after. A watershed moment divides time into two distinct periods. After a watershed, things are genuinely different and cannot return to what they were. The word carries historical weight. Example: the decision was a watershed. Everyone agreed that what came after it belonged to an entirely different era. Repeat: watershed. Word 116. Sublimate. Definition: divert the expression of an instinct into a more acceptable activity. What it carries: the transformation of energy. To sublimate is to take something raw and redirect it into something refined or productive. It is the word for what artists do with pain, what athletes do with aggression, what leaders do with ambition. Example: she had learned over years to sublimate her anxiety into productivity. The strategy had its costs, but it was remarkably effective. Repeat: sublimate. Word 117. Flux. Definition: the action or process of flowing or changing continuously. What it carries: perpetual change as a state of being. To be in flux is to be in the middle of change that has not yet resolved. The word carries both the discomfort of instability and the openness of things not yet determined. Example: everything was still in flux. Nothing had been decided. Nobody knew what the next month would look like. Repeat: flux. Word 118. Crystallize. Definition: form crystals. Make or become definite and clear. What it carries: the moment of clarification. Something that crystallizes was previously vague or dissolved. It becomes suddenly solid and clear. The word carries the satisfaction of understanding arriving, of things falling into place. Example: the conversation crystallized something she had been feeling for months without being able to name. Repeat: crystallize. Word 119. Reconfigure. Definition: configure differently. What it carries: the pragmatic face of change. To reconfigure is to take existing parts and arrange them in a new way. The word suggests resourcefulness, working with what is already there to create something different. Example: they had to reconfigure the entire approach when the original plan became unworkable. What they came up with was actually better. Repeat: reconfigure. Word 120. Transcend. Definition: be or go beyond the range or limits of. Surpass. What it carries: change that rises above. To transcend is not just to change, but to exceed what was previously thought possible. The word carries elevation, something that goes beyond its own limitations. Example, the performance transcended the material. Whatever the script gave her was not enough for what she brought to it. Repeat, transcend. Word 121, dissolution. Definition, the action of formally ending a partnership or arrangement. What it carries, intentional undoing. The dissolution of something formal, a marriage, a company, an agreement, carries both sadness and sometimes relief. The word gives dignity to endings. Example, the dissolution of the partnership was announced quietly and handled with more grace than the relationship itself had always managed. Repeat, dissolution. Word 122, permeate. Definition, spread throughout something, pervade, what it carries, change through penetration. Something that permeates does not sit on top, it moves through. A feeling that permeates a room, an idea that permeates a culture. The word suggests that the change is total and invisible. Example, the anxiety had permeated every part of the organization. You could feel it in the quality of conversations at every level. Repeat, permeate. Word 123, regenerate. Definition, bring new and more vigorous life to something. Regrow, what it carries, the extraordinary possibility of renewal. To regenerate is to find life again after what seemed like an ending. The word carries hope, not the fragile hope of wishing, but the grounded hope of biology. Example, the community had regenerated remarkably after the decade of difficulty. It was barely recognizable as the place it had been. Repeat, regenerate. Word 124, disintegrate. Definition, break up into small parts, typically as the result of impact or decay. What it carries, change that is irreversible. When something disintegrates, it does not just change. It ceases to be what it was in any form. The word is both physical and emotional. Plans disintegrate. Relationships disintegrate. Certainties disintegrate. Example, the argument that had seemed so convincing began to disintegrate the moment anyone pressed on it. Repeat, disintegrate. Word 125, renew. Definition, give fresh life or strength to. Begin again. What it carries, the grace of fresh starts. To renew is both to restore and to begin again. The word carries optimism, the belief that something can be made vital again, that the old does not have to mean the tired. Example, the year in the countryside had renewed her in ways she had not anticipated. She came back a different person. Repeat, renew. 125 words, 5 complete categories. You are halfway through this masterclass. And what you are building today is not just vocabulary. It is the language of a fully lived life. Let us push into the second half. Category 6, words of texture. These 25 words describe the physical and metaphorical feel of things, the texture of surfaces and of experience, the quality of things as they meet us, rough or smooth, coarse or delicate, solid or yielding. Word 126, gossamer. Definition: a fine, delicate, light material. Used to describe light, delicate things. What it carries: the most delicate thing imaginable. Gossamer is spider silk, morning mist, a veil of light. The word is used whenever something is so fine and fragile that touching it seems like a risk. Example: the fabric was gossamer light. She was almost afraid to pick it up. Repeat: gossamer. Word 127, coarse. Definition: rough or harsh in texture, rude or crude. What it carries: roughness without apology. Something coarse does not pretend to be refined. The word carries honesty about texture, physical and social. A coarse laugh, coarse fabric. The texture itself is the character. Example: his humor was coarse, but it was never unkind. There was a warmth underneath it that made it work. Repeat: coarse. Word 128, velvety. Definition: resembling velvet in being soft and smooth. What it carries: luxury as sensation. Something velvety invites touch. The word is sensory before it is descriptive. You almost feel it when you hear it. Used for voices, textures, wines, and darkness. Example: his voice had a velvety quality that made whatever he said sound more important than it might otherwise have been. Repeat: velvety. Word 129, jagged. Definition: having a sharply uneven edge or surface. What it carries: the quality of things that cut. Jagged edges are not smooth. They catch and tear. The word is used for physical surfaces and for emotional ones. A jagged feeling, a jagged relationship, something that wounds through its unevenness. Example: the jagged edges of the conversation were still catching on her days later. Nothing had been resolved cleanly. Repeat: jagged. Word 130, silken. Definition: made of silk, resembling silk in appearance or texture. What it carries: effortless smoothness. Something silken moves without resistance. It gives. It does not snag. The word is used for physical fabrics and for the quality of movement, sound, and manner that seems to flow without effort. Example: the negotiation was handled with a silken efficiency that left everyone slightly uncertain whether they had agreed to everything they thought they had. Repeat: silken. Word 131, gritty. Definition: containing or covered with grit, showing courage and resolve. What it carries: toughness rooted in reality. Something gritty does not pretend things are smooth. Gritty stories, gritty people, gritty determination, all carry the quality of engaging honestly with difficulty. Example: what made the novel remarkable was its gritty authenticity. It did not look away from anything. Repeat: gritty. Word 132, porous. Definition: having many small holes that let liquid or air pass through. What it carries: permeability as a quality. Something porous does not hold firm barriers. Things pass through. The word is used for boundaries that do not hold, for memories that bleed into each other, for identities that are open rather than defended. Example: the boundary between her professional and personal life had always been porous. She found it difficult to keep them separate. Repeat. Porous. Word 133. Brittle. Definition: hard but liable to break or shatter easily. What it carries: fragility disguised as hardness. Something brittle looks solid, but breaks suddenly and completely. The word is used for people who are holding themselves together too tightly, and for relationships that have lost their flexibility. Example: the cheerfulness she projected had a brittle quality that those who knew her well could recognize immediately. Repeat. Brittle. Word 134. Supple. Definition: bending and moving easily and gracefully, not stiff or rigid. What it carries: adaptive strength. Something supple does not resist. It yields and returns. The word carries admiration for the kind of strength that bends rather than breaks. In people, it suggests emotional and intellectual flexibility. Example: she had a supple intelligence that made her comfortable in conversations far outside her area of expertise. Repeat. Supple. Word 135. Rough-hewn. Definition: carved or cut out roughly, not smooth in appearance. What it carries: authenticity over polish. Something rough-hewn has not been refined. It is in the state in which it was found or first made. The word carries respect for the unfinished, the real, the unvarnished. Example: his manner was rough-hewn, but there was nothing dishonest about him. What you saw was exactly what was there. Repeat. Rough-hewn. Word 136. Yielding. Definition: giving way under pressure, producing a good return. What it carries: the strength of softness. To yield is not to fail. It is to respond to force without breaking. The word carries both physical and emotional meaning. Yielding ground. Yielding to another's judgment. The quiet wisdom of not insisting. Example: the soil was soft and yielding after the rain. Everything they planted that spring seemed to take immediately. Repeat. Yielding. Word 137. Gnarled. Definition: knobbly, rough, and twisted, especially with age. What it carries: the beauty of weathered experience. A gnarled tree has been through a great deal. The word carries respect for age and difficulty, the texture of a life that has been lived in challenging conditions. Example: his hands were gnarled with decades of physical work. She found them beautiful in the way that honest things always are. Repeat. Gnarled. Word 138. Frayed. Definition: worn at the edge so that there are loose threads. What it carries: the beginning of unraveling. Something frayed has not yet come apart, but the process has begun. The word is used for patience, nerves, relationships, and fabrics with equal accuracy. Example: by the end of the month, her patience was thoroughly frayed. She needed the break more than she had admitted. Repeat. Frayed. Word 139. Pliant. Definition. Easily bent, easily influenced or directed. What it carries. Either flexibility or a concerning readiness to be shaped by others. The word is ambivalent. A pliant material is useful. A pliant person can be a virtue or a weakness depending on the situation. Example: the material was pliant enough to be shaped by hand. You did not need tools. Repeat. Pliant. Word 140. Weathered. Definition. Worn by long exposure to the weather. Having a worn appearance through age and long experience. What it carries. Experience written on the surface. A weathered face. Building or object has been through time and shows it. The word carries respect. Something weathered is still standing, which is a form of achievement. Example: the weathered face that looked back at him from old photographs bore little resemblance to the person he felt himself to be inside. Repeat. Weathered. Word 141. Smooth. Definition. Having an even and regular surface, without difficulty or problems. What it carries. The quality of things that do not catch. In English, smooth carries enormous positive connotation. Smooth handling, smooth speech, smooth progress. But it can also suggest a lack of honesty. Something too smooth has no texture. It gives nothing to hold on to. Example: the presentation was perfectly smooth. So smooth, in fact, that it was hard to tell what was real conviction and what was performance. Repeat. Smooth. Word 142. Fibrous. Definition. Consisting of or characterized by fibers. What it carries. Strength through structure. Something fibrous holds together because of what runs through it. The word suggests that what looks plain is actually made of multiple threads, each one contributing to the whole. Example: the resilience of the community was fibrous, woven through with individual stories and relationships that held it together through difficulty. Repeat. Fibrous. Word 143. Abraded. Definition. Scraped or worn away by friction. What it carries. Damage through repeated contact. To be abraded is to be worn down over time, not through a single impact, but through sustained friction. The word is used for physical and emotional wearing away. Example: after months of the same argument, she felt abraded. Her patience had been worn down to something thin and raw. Repeat. Abraded. Word 144. Molten. Definition. Liquefied by heat. Very intensely hot. What it carries. The state of things before they have found their final form. Something molten is in transition. Intensely hot. Fluid. Not yet decided. The word carries the danger and the possibility of things in flux. Example: the landscape after the fire had a molten, reduced quality. Everything stripped back to what the heat had left. Repeat. Molten. Word 145. Tessellated. Definition. Decorated with mosaics. Forming a mosaic of small, regular shapes. What it carries. The beauty of small things making a whole. Something tessellated is composed of individual pieces arranged so that they fit together perfectly. The word suggests that complexity can produce elegance through careful arrangement. Example: the tessellated floor of the old building was one of the most beautiful things she had ever walked across. Repeat. Tessellated. Word 146. Lacerated. Definition. Torn or deeply cut. Cause deep emotional pain to. What it carries. Wounds that go deep. A lacerated feeling is not a surface scratch. It goes through layers. The word is used for both physical wounds and the kind of words or events that leave deep marks. Example: the review was so brutal that she felt genuinely lacerated by it. She put it down and did not pick it up again for a week. Repeat: lacerated. Word 147, downy. Definition: covered with fine, soft hair or feathers. What it carries: the softest of all softnesses. Downy things are new and young and gentle. The word is almost entirely tender. It is used for things that are delicate and deserve protection. Example: the newborn's head was covered in the most downy, impossibly soft hair. She could not stop touching it. Repeat: downy. Word 148, stratified. Definition: arranged in strata, divided or arranged into social classes or castes. What it carries: layers visible from the outside. Something stratified shows its history in its layers: geological, social, organizational. The word suggests that what appears as a single surface is actually composed of distinct historical layers. Example: the organization was deeply stratified. Moving between levels was possible, but rarely happened and never happened easily. Repeat: stratified. Word 149, burnished. Definition: polished by rubbing to a smooth, shining surface. What it carries: the result of patient work. Something burnished has been worked on until it shines. Not born brilliant, but made brilliant through sustained attention and effort. Example: the argument had been burnished over years of repetition until it was nearly impossible to find fault with its surface, whatever you thought about its substance. Repeat: burnished. Word 150, intact. Definition: not damaged or impaired in any way. What it carries: the particular value of survival. Something intact has come through something that could have damaged it and hasn't been. The word carries quiet triumph, not just present, but whole. Example: after everything, her sense of humor was entirely intact. That, more than anything, told you what she was made of. Repeat: intact. 150 words, 6 categories complete. We have reached the halfway point of this masterclass. The second half now takes us into the words of sound, space, the body, truth, beginning, and ending. These are the words that live closest to what it means to be human. Let us continue. Category 7, words of sound. These 25 words describe the world as it is heard. The rich vocabulary of sound in English goes far beyond loud and quiet. It captures the precise quality of what reaches us through the ear. Word 151, reverberate. Definition: be repeated several times as an echo. Have continuing and significant effects. What it carries: sound that returns. Something that reverberates does not simply sound and stop. It continues, bounces, returns. The word is used for both acoustic phenomena and for events or words that continue to echo through time. Example: his words continued to reverberate in her mind long after the conversation had ended. She kept finding new implications in them. Repeat: reverberate. Word 152, resonant. Definition: producing or capable of producing a deep, clear sound that continues for a long time. What it carries: depth combined with duration. A resonant voice does not just sound good, it vibrates, it reaches something. The word is also used for ideas and images that produce this same quality in the mind. Example: the speech was resonant in a way that purely technical language never is. People remembered it. Repeat: resonant. Word 153, cacophony. Definition: a harsh, discordant mixture of sounds. What it carries: sound as assault. A cacophony is not just noise. It is noise that conflicts with itself, that assaults rather than communicates. The word is used for situations, conversations, and institutions as well as for actual sound. Example: the city center at noon was a cacophony. She lasted 20 minutes before retreating to the quiet of a side street. Repeat: cacophony. Word 154, murmur. Definition: a low, continuous sound. Say something in a low, soft voice. What it carries: sound at its most intimate. A murmur is barely sound. It is what happens at the edge of silence. The word carries privacy, tenderness, and the quality of things not meant to be overheard. Example: there was a murmur of approval through the audience. Not applause, something quieter and more genuine than applause. Repeat: murmur. Word 155, clamor. Definition: a loud and confused noise. Shout loudly and insistently. What it carries: noise with demand in it. A clamor is not just loud, it wants something. There is urgency and confusion together. The word carries both the volume and the quality of competing voices, each insisting on being heard. Example: the clamor of competing opinions made it almost impossible to think clearly. She stepped outside to find some quiet. Repeat: clamor. Word 156, dissonance. Definition: lack of harmony among musical notes. A tension resulting from the combination of two disharmonious elements. What it carries: the discomfort of things that do not fit. Dissonance is not just wrong, it is actively uncomfortable. The word is used for the gap between what we expect and what we get, between our values and our actions. Example: there was a cognitive dissonance in holding both beliefs simultaneously. She was aware of it but had not yet resolved it. Repeat: dissonance. Word 157, susurrus. Definition: whispering or murmuring sound. What it carries: the most gentle of all sounds. A susurrus is the sound of wind in leaves, of distant conversation, of the world going quietly about its business. The word itself sounds like what it describes. Example: the susurrus of the trees outside the window was the only sound in the room. She found it deeply comforting. Repeat: susurrus. Word 158, staccato. Definition: performed with each note sharply detached or separated from the others. What it carries: sharpness and separation. In music, staccato is precise and clipped. In speech and writing, staccato sentences or words carry the same quality: short, deliberate, with silence between each one. Example: she spoke in staccato sentences when she was angry. Short, precise, each word placed with intention. Repeat: staccato. Word 159. Dulcet. Definition: sweet and soothing, often used ironically. What it carries: sweetness of sound, real or ironic. Dulcet tones are technically sweet and pleasant. The word is also used with gentle irony for sounds that are anything but pleasant. The dual register makes it playful. Example: the dulcet tones of the building's alarm system at 6 a.m. did not exactly inspire a warm start to the day. Repeat: dulcet. Word 160. Sonorous. Definition: capable of producing a deep, resonant sound. Imposingly impressive. What it carries: the authority of deep sound. A sonorous voice commands attention without demanding it. The word carries gravity and a certain grandeur. Things that are sonorous take up space in the air without effort. Example: the organ filled the space with something sonorous and immense. The whole building seemed to vibrate with it. Repeat: sonorous. Word 161. Hush. Definition: make or become silent. A silence. What it carries: silence that is asked for or imposed. A hush is different from silence. It is the silence that follows something, or the silence that precedes something important. It carries expectation. Example: a hush fell over the room when she walked in. Something in her manner commanded it without her needing to ask. Repeat: hush. Word 162. Cadence. Definition: a modulation or inflection of the voice. A sequence of notes or chords comprising the close of a musical phrase. What it carries: the rhythm of language as music. A cadence in speech is the way a voice rises and falls. The word carries the awareness that language has a musical dimension beyond its meaning, that how something is said is part of what is communicated. Example: the cadence of her speech was different in English and in her first language. Both were beautiful. Both were unmistakably hers. Repeat: cadence. Word 163. Tumultuous. Definition: making a loud, confused noise. Excited, confused, or disorderly. What it carries: noise at the level of upheaval. Tumultuous sound is not just loud, it signals disorder, excitement, or both. A tumultuous response from a crowd. Tumultuous times. The word suggests that things are happening faster than they can be processed. Example: the response to the announcement was tumultuous. The room had its own weather for several minutes. Repeat: tumultuous. Word 164. Peal. Definition: a loud ringing of bells, a loud burst of laughter or thunder. What it carries: joyful, full-throated sound. A peal is not a quiet sound. It is celebratory, ceremonial, full. The word carries an exuberance that is almost physical in its completeness. Example: peals of laughter came through the wall from the room next door. Whatever they were talking about, it was working. Repeat. Peal. Word 165. Sottovoce. Definition: in a quiet voice, as if not to be overheard. What it carries: the deliberate lowering of volume for effect. Something said sottovoce is intended to be heard by some and not others. The word carries conspiracy, intimacy, or both. Example: she added the last comment sottovoce to the person beside her. Only they heard it, and only they were meant to. Repeat. Sottovoce. Word 166. Euphony. Definition: the quality of being pleasing to the ear. What it carries: the aesthetics of sound. Euphony is sound that pleases for its own sake, independent of meaning. The word is used for language and music that is intrinsically pleasant to experience, regardless of what it says. Example: what she loved about the language was its euphony. Even the most mundane sentences had a musical quality in it. Repeat. Euphony. Word 167. Discordant. Definition: disagreeing or incongruous, not in harmony. What it carries: conflict expressed as sound. Something discordant creates discomfort through its wrongness. The word is used for sounds, relationships, and situations where the parts do not fit together and the result is jarring. Example: the cheerful music playing in the waiting room felt discordant given why everyone in it was there. Repeat. Discordant. Word 168. Ululate. Definition: howl or wail as an expression of strong emotion. What it carries: the most primal form of vocal expression. To ululate is to let sound be pure feeling, without words, without structure. The word carries something ancient and deeply human about the need to release feeling as sound. Example: the grief in the room had found its way into something that was almost an ululation. Nobody tried to stop it. Repeat. Ululate. Word 169. Timbre. Definition: the character or quality of a musical sound or voice, as distinct from its pitch. What it carries: the fingerprint of sound. Timbre is what makes one voice different from another, even when they are singing the same note. It is the word for the particular quality of a sound that makes it unmistakably itself. Example: his timbre was immediately recognizable, even on a poor recording. There was no mistaking that voice. Repeat. Timbre. Word 170. Lilt. Definition: a characteristic rising and falling of the voice, a pleasant, gentle rhythm. What it carries: the music hidden in speech. A lilt is the natural melody of a way of speaking, usually associated with particular regional accents or languages. It is always noticed with affection and warmth. Example: she had a lilt in her voice that came from her home region and never left, even after decades living elsewhere. Repeat. Lilt. Word 171. Thrum. Definition: make a continuous, rhythmic humming sound. What it carries: the sound of things working. Something that thrums is alive with energy. Motors, guitars, cities, conversations. The word carries the pleasure of sustained, purposeful sound. Example: the city thrummed with a particular energy on Friday evenings. You could feel it the moment you stepped outside. Repeat. Thrum. Word 172. Decibel. Definition: a unit used to measure the intensity of a sound. What it carries: precision about volume. In everyday use, decibel suggests controlled attention to the level of noise, usually in contexts where that level matters very much. Example: the decibel level in the restaurant made genuine conversation almost impossible. They left after the starter. Repeat. Decibel. Word 173. Raucous. Definition: making or constituting a disturbingly harsh and loud noise. What it carries: noise with energy and a lack of refinement. A raucous crowd, a raucous laugh. These are sounds that carry joy or chaos, or both. The word never describes quiet things. It is always about something fully alive and unconstrained. Example: the raucous laughter from the back of the bus was impossible to ignore and, eventually, impossible not to join. Repeat. Raucous. Word 174. Overtone. Definition: a musical tone that is a part of the harmonic series above a fundamental note. A subtle implication. What it carries: the meaning beneath the meaning. An overtone is what is present but not stated. When something carries overtones, it means more than it says. The word asks you to listen for what is underneath the surface sound. Example: the conversation was pleasant enough, but it had uncomfortable overtones that neither of them acknowledged directly. Repeat. Overtone. Word 175. Silence. Definition: complete absence of sound. The fact or state of abstaining from speech. What it carries: everything. Silence in English is never just the absence of sound. It carries meaning, intention, weight. A silence can communicate more than any word. Native speakers read silences with as much attention as they read words. Example: the silence that followed his question was long enough to be its own answer. He did not ask again. Repeat. Silence. 175 words. 7 categories done. 3 categories remain. Let us move into the words of space, then truth, then endings. Category 8. Words of space. These 25 words describe the experience of physical and metaphorical space, the places we inhabit, the distances between things, and the quality of environments as they are felt and understood. Word 176. Expansive. Definition: covering a wide area, relaxed, friendly, and communicative. What it carries: generosity of space. Something expansive does not crowd or limit. It opens. An expansive gesture, an expansive view, an expansive personality. The word carries the pleasure of space that gives you room to be yourself. Example: the conversation was expansive in the best way. Nothing was rushed. There was room for every thought that needed to be had. Repeat. Expansive. Word 177. Cavernous. Definition: like a cavern in being vast and dark. What it carries: scale that overwhelms. A cavernous space is not just large, it is so large that it changes the quality of experience. Sounds echo. The individual feels small. The word carries both awe and slight unease. Example: the cavernous emptiness of the exhibition hall before the show opened gave the room an almost sacred quality. Repeat. Cavernous. Word 178. Intimate. Definition: closely acquainted, of or involved in a close personal relationship. What it carries: scale that protects. An intimate space is the opposite of cavernous. It is small enough to be safe, to feel contained, to feel like the right size for the people inside it. Example: the venue was intimate in a way that made even the largest ideas feel manageable. You could think there. Repeat. Intimate. Word 179. Liminal. Definition: relating to a threshold or transitional stage. What it carries: the in-between. A liminal space is a space of transition, neither fully one thing nor fully another. Airports, hospitals, waiting rooms, doorways. The word has become one of the most resonant in contemporary English for the experience of not yet. Example: the weeks between jobs existed in a liminal space that was both uncomfortable and strangely freeing. Repeat. Liminal. Word 180. Sequestered. Definition: isolated and hidden away. What it carries: privacy as shelter. Something sequestered has been deliberately set apart from the world. The word carries both the comfort of withdrawal and the slight melancholy of isolation. Example: they had found a sequestered corner of the garden where the noise of the party did not quite reach. Repeat. Sequestered. Word 181. Boundless. Definition: unlimited or immense. What it carries: freedom expressed as space. Something boundless has no edges, no walls, no limit. The word carries both the exhilaration of openness and the slight vertigo of having no ground beneath you. Example: she felt a boundless gratitude for how things had turned out. There were no words that were quite big enough for it. Repeat. Boundless. Word 182. Labyrinthine. Definition: complicated and difficult to understand, of or resembling a labyrinth. What it carries: complexity without visible structure. Something labyrinthine turns in on itself. It does not proceed forward, it circles. The word carries the frustration and fascination of systems or stories that seem to have no exit. Example: the bureaucratic process was labyrinthine. Every answer led to 3 more questions. Nobody was quite sure where the center was. Repeat. Labyrinthine. Word 183. Cloistered. Definition: kept away from the outside world. What it carries: seclusion with purpose. A cloistered life is not imprisoned, it is withdrawn, often deliberately, for contemplation or work. The word carries the dignity of voluntary isolation. Example: she had lived a cloistered existence during the years of writing. The outside world barely reached her. Repeat. Cloistered. Word 184. vertiginous. Definition: extremely high or steep, causing dizziness. What it carries: the physical sensation of great height combined with the emotional sensation of great risk. Something vertiginous makes you feel unsteady, in your body and in your confidence. The ground feels very far below. Example: the speed of change in the organization had been vertiginous. Nobody had had time to stabilize between one shift and the next. Repeat: vertiginous. Word 185. Peripheral. Definition: relating to the outer limits of something, of secondary importance, what it carries, the edge of attention. Something peripheral is present, but not central. It is noticed without being focused on. The word carries both the value of the things at the edge and the slight melancholy of not being at the center. Example: she had always existed in the peripheral space of that group, close enough to observe, but never quite fully inside. Repeat: peripheral. Word 186. Encompassing. Definition: surround and have or hold within, include comprehensively. What it carries: a wholeness of inclusion. Something encompassing does not exclude. It holds everything inside it. The word carries the security of being completely included, of being within something larger that holds you. Example: the framework was encompassing enough to accommodate every perspective. Nothing was left outside it. Repeat: encompassing. Word 187. Vast. Definition: of very great extent or quantity. What it carries: scale beyond ordinary measure. Vast things do not just feel large, they produce a particular response in the person experiencing them, a kind of smallness that is not diminishment, but perspective. Example: standing at the edge of the gorge, she had a sudden sense of the vast geological time that the layers of rock represented. Repeat: vast. Word 188. Enclosed. Definition: shut in on all sides. What it carries: the quality of being held. Something enclosed is surrounded, protected, or confined, depending on the emotional register. An enclosed garden, an enclosed community. The word is both shelter and limitation. Example: the enclosed space had a monastic quality. Whatever happened there felt separate from the outside world. Repeat: enclosed. Word 189. Recessed. Definition: set back from the main surface, in a state of temporary economic decline. What it carries: depth behind the surface. Something recessed is not immediately visible. It requires looking further in. The word suggests layers, hidden depths, things that reveal themselves only to those who look carefully. Example: the small chapel was recessed at the end of a long corridor. Most visitors walked past without noticing it. Repeat: recessed. Word 190. Panoramic. Definition: with a wide view surrounding the observer. What it carries: the gift of perspective. A panoramic view gives you everything at once. You can see the full picture. The word carries both the visual pleasure of the wide view and the conceptual pleasure of being able to see the whole rather than just the part. Example: from the top of the hill, the view was panoramic. Everything that had felt tangled and close seemed, from up here, To make a kind of sense. Repeat. Panoramic. Word 191. Subterranean. Definition. Existing or happening underground. What it carries. Hidden depth and movement. Something subterranean operates below the surface, unseen but real. The word is used for physical underground spaces and for the hidden currents in human situations. Example: there was a subterranean current of anxiety in the organization that the public statements never acknowledged. Repeat. Subterranean. Word 192. Precipice. Definition. A tall and very steep rock face or cliff. A dangerously or dramatically situation. What it carries. The edge of things. A precipice is where the ground ends. The word carries both physical danger and the emotional experience of being at the limit, of being one step away from something that cannot be undone. Example: they were standing at the precipice of a decision that would define the company for a generation. Repeat. Precipice. Word 193. Enclosed. Definition. Surrounded on all sides. What it carries. Safety or confinement depending on what is inside and who is experiencing it. Example: the walled garden had an enclosed quality that made everything inside it feel slightly removed from the ordinary world. Repeat. Enclosed. Word 194. Sprawling. Definition. Spread out over a large area in an untidy manner. What it carries. Expansion beyond neat boundaries. Something sprawling does not stay within its original limits. It spreads. The word carries both the generosity of growth and the untidiness of things that have outgrown their original shape. Example: the sprawling narrative of the novel contained entire lives within lives. You could spend a year in it. Repeat. Sprawling. Word 195. Capacious. Definition. Having a lot of space inside. Roomy. What it carries. Interior generosity. Something capacious holds more than it appears to from outside. A capacious mind, a capacious bag, a capacious house, all offer more room than their exterior suggests. Example: she had a capacious memory for detail. Conversations from years ago were entirely intact inside her. Repeat. Capacious. Word 196. Alcove. Definition. A recess in the wall of a room or garden. What it carries. The pleasure of smallness within largeness. An alcove is private space within a larger space. A room within a room. The word carries comfort, shelter, and the particular pleasure of being slightly apart from everything while still connected to it. Example: she found an alcove near the back of the library and spent 3 hours there, reading without interruption. Repeat. Alcove. Word 197. Terrain. Definition. A stretch of land, especially with regard to its physical features. What it carries. The nature of the ground beneath you. Terrain is not just landscape. It is the conditions under which you must navigate. The word is used for physical landscapes and for the emotional and professional conditions of any situation. Example: the emotional terrain of that conversation was unlike anything she had navigated before. Repeat. Terrain. Word 198. Unfathomable. Definition. Incapable of being fully explored or understood. Very deep. What it carries. Depth beyond reach. Something unfathomable cannot be measured. It goes further than any instrument can follow. The word carries awe and humility before what cannot be known. Example. The grief had an unfathomable quality in those first weeks. She could not see the bottom of it. Repeat. Unfathomable. Word 199. Horizon. Definition. The line at which the Earth's surface and the sky appear to meet. The limit of a person's knowledge, experience, or interest. What it carries. The furthest visible edge. A horizon is always there and never quite reached. The word carries both the beauty of what is possible and the awareness that some things remain perpetually in the distance. Example. The new role opened up a horizon she had not previously been able to see. Everything looked different from this position. Repeat. Horizon. Word 200. Refuge. Definition. A condition of being safe or sheltered from pursuit, danger, or trouble. What it carries. The relief of safety found. A refuge is not just a place. It is the feeling of being protected, of being somewhere that the outside cannot enter. The word carries profound human comfort. Example. The library had always been a refuge for her. Whatever was happening outside its walls did not follow her through the door. Repeat. Refuge. 200 words. 8 categories complete. 100 words remaining. Our final 4 categories cover truth, the body, beginning, and ending. Category 9. Words of truth. These 25 words describe honesty, clarity, reality, and the difficult beauty of things as they actually are. Word 201. Candor. Definition. The quality of being open and honest in expression. What it carries. Honesty that respects the listener. Candor is not brutal honesty. It is considered honesty. The kind that is given because the relationship can bear it and because the person deserves it. Example. She appreciated his candor about the weaknesses of the proposal. It made her trust him more, not less. Repeat. Candor. Word 202. Lucid. Definition. Expressed clearly, easy to understand, showing an ability to think clearly. What it carries. Clarity as a gift. A lucid explanation does not just make sense, it makes things make sense that were previously confused. The word carries the satisfaction of understanding arriving. Example. His account of the situation was remarkably lucid, given how complex it actually was. Repeat. Lucid. Word 203. Forthright. Definition. Direct and outspoken, going straight forward. What it carries. Directness as a value. A forthright person says what they mean without unnecessary softening. The word carries respect for the listener's ability to handle the truth. Example. Her forthright manner unsettled people at first, but they consistently came to trust her more than the people who told them what they wanted to hear. Repeat. Forthright. Word 204. Verisimilitude. Definition: the appearance of being true or real. What it carries: convincing reality rather than actual reality. Verisimilitude is the quality of seeming true. Art, fiction, and performance all aspire to it. The word is honest about the distinction between the real and the convincingly real. Example: the novel's success rested on its extraordinary verisimilitude. You never doubted for a moment that these people were real. Repeat. Verisimilitude. Word 205. Authentic. Definition: of undisputed origin, made or done in the traditional way, based on facts, accurate or reliable. What it carries: the quality of being genuinely itself. Authentic things are not copies or performances. They are the real thing. The word has become one of the most valued qualities in contemporary English. Example: what people responded to was the authentic emotion in her work. It had nothing to do with technique. Repeat. Authentic. Word 206. Unvarnished. Definition: not varnished, plain and straightforward. What it carries: truth without polish. The unvarnished truth does not try to make itself palatable. It is the truth as it is. The word suggests that the polishing of truth is itself a form of distortion. Example: she asked for his unvarnished opinion, and he gave it. She was not entirely prepared for how unvarnished it would be. Repeat. Unvarnished. Word 207. Pellucid. Definition: translucently clear, easily understood. What it carries: the beauty of perfect clarity. Something pellucid is so clear that there is nothing to obstruct the seeing. The word carries the aesthetic pleasure of transparency. Example: her writing was pellucid. You never had to read a sentence twice. Repeat. Pellucid. Word 208. Transparent. Definition: allowing light to pass through so that objects behind can be distinctly seen, easy to perceive or detect. What it carries: visibility as virtue. A transparent process or person does not hide. The word carries the value of being seen completely, with nothing held back and nothing concealed. Example: the organization committed to being transparent about its decision-making process. The commitment took genuine courage. Repeat. Transparent. Word 209. Veracity. Definition: conformity to facts, accuracy. What it carries: truth as a quality of character. Veracity is not just being right, it is the habit of truth. The word carries admiration for the person who consistently tells the truth regardless of the cost. Example: nobody questioned her veracity. Whatever she said, you could take it as fact. Repeat. Veracity. Word 210. Stark. Definition: severe or bare in appearance, complete, harsh. What it carries: the quality of things stripped of all softening, a stark truth, a stark landscape, a stark choice. All are reduced to their essential reality. Nothing comfortable is being offered. The word demands engagement with what actually is. Example: the difference between their situations was stark. There was no gentle way to describe it. Repeat. Stark. Word 211. Irrefutable. Definition: impossible to deny or disprove. What it carries: the end of argument. An irrefutable fact cannot be questioned. The evidence is too complete. The word carries a kind of finality that closes discussion. What is irrefutable simply is. Example: the evidence was irrefutable. Whatever argument they had hoped to make, it was not available to them. Repeat. Irrefutable. Word 212. Disingenuous. Definition: not candid or sincere. Typically by pretending that one knows less about something than one does. What it carries: dishonesty in the form of performed innocence. A disingenuous person is not lying. They are pretending not to know. It is a sophisticated form of dishonesty that native speakers recognize immediately and find particularly irritating. Example: the response was disingenuous, and everyone in the room knew it. He knew exactly what had happened. Repeat. Disingenuous. Word 213. Oblique. Definition: neither parallel nor at a right angle. Not explicit or direct in addressing a point. What it carries: indirection as style. Something said obliquely is said at an angle. The meaning is there, but it does not come straight at you. The word carries both the sophistication of indirection and the frustration it can cause. Example: his criticism was characteristically oblique. You had to know him to understand what he was actually saying. Repeat. Oblique. Word 214. Substantiated. Definition: provide evidence to support or prove the truth of. What it carries: truth with proof attached. Something substantiated is not just claimed, it is demonstrated. The word carries the satisfaction of evidence doing its job. Example: the allegations were serious and fully substantiated. There was no question about what had happened. Repeat. Substantiated. Word 215. Incontrovertible. Definition: not able to be denied or disputed. What it carries: the most complete form of truth. Something incontrovertible is beyond argument. The word carries absolute authority. What is incontrovertible is not a matter of opinion or interpretation. Example: the incontrovertible fact of the matter was that they had been given the information and had chosen not to act on it. Repeat. Incontrovertible. Word 216. Credible. Definition: able to be believed. Convincing. What it carries: believability as a quality. A credible source, a credible account. The word carries the question of whether something earns trust and suggests that trust is not automatic but must be established. Example: the explanation was credible, but only barely. There were questions it did not quite answer. Repeat. Credible. Word 217. Fallacious. Definition: based on a mistaken belief. What it carries: the danger of confident error. A fallacious argument looks like truth and feels like truth, but is not. The word carries a warning about the gap between confidence and accuracy. Example: the reasoning was fallacious, but delivered with such conviction that it took a moment to identify where it had gone wrong. Repeat: fallacious. Word 218. Manifest. Definition: clear or obvious to the eye or mind. Display or show a quality or feeling by one's acts. What it carries: visibility of what was previously hidden or unclear. When something is manifest, it has become undeniable. When something manifests, it has moved from potential to actual. The word carries arrival and visibility. Example: the impact of the change had begun to manifest in the team's mood. It was visible to anyone paying attention. Repeat: manifest. Word 219. Nuanced. Definition: characterized by subtle distinctions. What it carries: the intelligence of distinction. A nuanced understanding does not flatten complexity, it holds it. The word carries respect for difficulty and the refusal to simplify what should not be simplified. Example: her analysis was nuanced in a way that made the report genuinely useful. She did not pretend the situation was simple. Repeat: nuanced. Word 220. Immutable. Definition: unchanging over time or unable to be changed. What it carries: the rare quality of genuine permanence. Something immutable does not shift with circumstance or opinion. The word carries both comfort, some things are fixed, and a kind of reverence for what cannot be altered. Example: some facts are immutable. Whatever interpretation you favor, they do not change. Repeat: immutable. Word 221. Sanguine. Definition: optimistic or positive, especially in a difficult situation. What it carries: confidence that survives difficulty. A sanguine person is not naive. They see the difficulty and remain positive anyway. The word carries the particular courage of maintained optimism. Example: she was sanguine about the outcome in a way that surprised those who knew the full extent of the problem. Repeat: sanguine. Word 222. Cogent. Definition: clear, logical, and convincing. What it carries: the particular power of well-constructed truth. A cogent argument does not just make sense, it compels. It proceeds from evidence to conclusion with a clarity that is hard to resist. Example: the case for changing the policy was cogent. It was also uncomfortable, and that is why it had been resisted. Repeat: cogent. Word 223. Specious. Definition: superficially plausible but actually wrong. What it carries: deceptive attractiveness. A specious argument looks convincing from a distance. It is only under examination that the holes appear. The word warns you to look more carefully before accepting what seems obvious. Example: the reasoning was specious. It held together only if you did not press on any of the assumptions. Repeat: specious. Word 224. Empirical. Definition: based on observation or experience rather than theory. What it carries: the authority of the demonstrated. Empirical evidence is not opinion or theory. It is what has been observed. The word carries the particular respect that English culture gives to the demonstrated over the theorized. Example: the empirical evidence supported the approach. Whatever the theoretical objections, this was what had actually worked. Repeat: empirical. Word 225, quintessential. Definition: representing the most perfect or typical example of a quality or class. What it carries: the fullest expression of what something is. The quintessential version of anything is the one that most completely represents everything that thing stands for. The word carries both admiration and a certain finality. Example: it was the quintessential English summer afternoon, warm but not too warm, green, quiet, almost unbearably pleasant. Repeat: quintessential. 225 words, 9 categories, 3 to go. Words of beginning, words of the body, and our final category, words of ending. Category 10, words of the body. These 25 words describe the physical experience of being alive, the sensations, states, and responses of the body as it moves through the world. Word 226, visceral. Definition: relating to deep inward feelings rather than to the intellect, relating to the viscera. What it carries: the body as the site of deepest knowing. A visceral reaction comes before thought. It is the body responding before the mind has caught up. The word carries rawness and authenticity. Example: her response to the work was visceral before it was intellectual. Something in her body responded before she had a thought about it. Repeat: visceral. Word 227, languorous. Definition: having or showing a disinclination for physical exertion or effort, relaxed and peaceful. What it carries: pleasurable slowness. Something languorous is not laziness. It is the indulgence of unhurried time. A languorous afternoon, a languorous pace. The word carries warmth and the luxury of not needing to hurry. Example: the heat created a languorous mood in the house. Nobody wanted to do anything quickly. Repeat: languorous. Word 228, kinetic. Definition: relating to or resulting from motion. What it carries: energy in movement. Something kinetic is alive with motion. The word is used for art, people, performances, and situations that seem to generate energy through their own movement. Example: the choreography was intensely kinetic. The stage seemed to barely contain what was happening on it. Repeat: kinetic. Word 229, corporeal. Definition: relating to a person's body, especially as opposed to their mind or soul. What it carries: the factual, physical nature of being bodied. The word carries philosophical weight. It places us firmly in the material world. Corporeal existence is finite, vulnerable, and real. Example: the illness had made her intensely aware of her corporeal existence in a way she had not been before. Repeat: Corporeal. Word 230. Tremulous. Definition: shaking or quivering slightly. Timid. Nervous. What it carries: the body showing what the voice tries to hide. Something tremulous reveals emotion through physical manifestation. The trembling that cannot be controlled. The word carries vulnerability. Example: her voice was tremulous when she finally spoke. The composure she had held throughout broke in a single word. Repeat. Tremulous. Word 231. Palpable. Definition: able to be touched or felt. So intense as to seem almost tangible. What it carries: feeling made almost physical. Something palpable has crossed the threshold from the emotional into the nearly material. A palpable tension, a palpable sense of relief. The word makes emotion concrete. Example: the relief in the room was palpable. You could feel the change in the air the moment the news came through. Repeat. Palpable. Word 232. Atrophied. Definition: gradually decline in effectiveness or vigor due to underuse. What it carries: the loss that comes from disuse. Something atrophied has not been suddenly destroyed. It has diminished through neglect. The word carries both sadness and the possibility of reversal. Example: the skill had atrophied through years of not being used. She was surprised how much she had to relearn. Repeat. Atrophied. Word 233. Enervated. Definition: having been weakened or drained of energy. What it carries: the particular exhaustion of depletion. To be enervated is to have had the energy drawn out. The word suggests something extracted rather than simply spent. Example: the meeting had left her feeling completely enervated. Something about it had taken more than the usual amount. Repeat. Enervated. Word 234. Sinuous. Definition: having many curves and turns, moving in a smooth and winding way. What it carries: the beauty of nonlinear movement. Something sinuous does not go straight. It curves and winds and arrives by a more interesting route. The word carries elegance in its suggestion of movement. Example: the river's sinuous course through the valley made it appear, from above, like something alive and deliberate. Repeat. Sinuous. Word 235. Tactile. Definition: of or connected with the sense of touch, perceptible by touch or apparently so. What it carries: the primacy of touch. Something tactile speaks to the hands and skin before the eyes and mind. The word carries intimacy, the particular knowledge that comes from physical contact. Example: her work was intensely tactile. You wanted to touch it before you understood it. Repeat. Tactile. Word 236. Supine. Definition: lying face upward, failing to act as a result of moral weakness or indolence. What it carries: horizontal passivity, sometimes restful, sometimes concerned. A supine position is one of vulnerability and openness. The word carries both the rest of lying down and the vulnerability of being face up to the sky. Example: he lay supine on the grass, looking at the clouds, and thought, for the first time in months, of nothing at all. Repeat: supine. Word 237, convulsive. Definition: producing or relating to convulsions, sudden and violent. What it carries: the body at the extreme of involuntary response, a convulsive laugh, convulsive grief. The word describes reactions that pass through the entire body that cannot be moderated or controlled. Example: the laughter was convulsive and contagious. Within 30 seconds, the entire room had joined in. Repeat: convulsive. Word 238, taut. Definition: stretched or pulled tight, not slack. What it carries: tension held. Something taut has not yet released. A taut wire, a taut situation. The word carries the awareness that something could snap, the energy of tension maintained. Example: the atmosphere in the room was taut. Everyone was waiting for something, and nobody was sure when it would come. Repeat: taut. Word 239, resilient. Definition: able to recover quickly from difficult conditions, returning to original form after being bent or stretched. What it carries: the specific kind of strength that comes back. A resilient person is not unaffected by difficulty. They are affected, and they recover. The word carries admiration for the process of returning. Example: the team had proved remarkably resilient. What would have broken other groups had made this one somehow stronger. Repeat: resilient. Word 240, inert. Definition: lacking the ability or strength to move, inactive. What it carries: complete stillness without peace in it. Something inert is not at rest. It is simply not moving. The word carries the slight disquiet of stillness that is not chosen. Example: the organization had become inert. Nobody was making decisions. Nothing was moving. The energy had simply stopped. Repeat: inert. Word 241, muscular. Definition: having well-developed muscles, vigorously robust. What it carries: strength with purpose, a muscular argument, a muscular style, a muscular approach. These have power and direction. The word carries the particular respect that English gives to strength that is disciplined. Example: the writing had a muscular quality that made it immediately compelling. No word was wasted. Repeat: muscular. Word 242, listless. Definition: lacking energy or enthusiasm. What it carries: the quality of energy that has simply gone. A listless person is not sad. They are simply without the force that makes things possible. The word carries the low, flat feeling of emptiness. Example: she moved through the day in a listless way that was unlike her. Something had gone out of her since the news. Repeat: listless. Word 243, unbridled. Definition: uncontrolled, unconstrained. What it carries: freedom at the edge of wildness. Something unbridled has had the restraints removed. The word carries energy that is slightly dangerous and entirely alive. Unbridled enthusiasm, unbridled passion, unbridled anything. It will go where it goes. Example: the unbridled joy of the children at the news was the best thing any of the adults had seen in months. Repeat. Unbridled. Word 244. Sinewy. Definition: consisting of or resembling sinew, lean and muscular. What it carries: strength without excess. Sinewy strength is not bulk. It is the strength of what is essential and nothing more. The word carries precision and efficiency. Example: the prose had a sinewy quality that made every sentence do more work than it appeared to. Repeat. Sinewy. Word 245. Elemental. Definition: primary or essential, related to the forces of nature. What it carries: connection to the fundamental. Something elemental has stripped away the complex and returned to what is basic and true. The word carries both power and simplicity. Example: the emotion she felt was elemental, not sophisticated, not nuanced, simply enormous and real. Repeat. Elemental. Word 246. Tenacious. Definition: holding firmly to something, not readily relinquishing a position, principle, or course of action. What it carries: the particular quality of determined grip. A tenacious person does not let go. The word carries admiration, the quality of holding on through everything that tries to make you release. Example: her tenacious pursuit of the answer over years of work had finally produced this result. Repeat. Tenacious. Word 247. Vibrant. Definition: full of energy and enthusiasm, bright and striking. What it carries: life at a high frequency. Something vibrant does not just exist, it pulses. It fills a room with energy. The word carries the pleasure of being around something that is fully alive. Example: the city had a vibrant quality that she had not expected. She felt more awake in it than she had in years. Repeat. Vibrant. Word 248. Stolid. Definition: calm, dependable, and showing little emotion. What it carries: stability as a form of strength. A stolid person is not cold. They are simply steady. The word carries respect for the kind of reliability that does not make dramatic promises because it does not need to. Example: his stolid presence in the crisis had been exactly what was needed. He did not panic. He simply worked. Repeat. Stolid. Word 249. Frenetic. Definition: fast and energetic in a rather wild and uncontrolled way. What it carries: energy without order. Frenetic activity is not just busy. It has lost its structure. The word carries both the energy of motion and the slight anxiety of motion that is not quite controlled. Example: the pace of the final week before the launch was frenetic. Nobody slept much. Everything happened at once. Repeat: frenetic. Word 250, embodied. Definition: give a tangible or visible form to an idea. Include or contain as a constituent part. What it carries: the making real of an idea in physical form. Something embodied has crossed from concept into substance. The word carries the particular satisfaction of an idea that has found its form. Example: the building embodied the values of the community that had commissioned it. You could read them in every choice. Repeat: embodied. 250 words. 10 categories done. 2 remaining. Words of beginning and words of ending. Let us reach the end of this masterclass together. Category 11. Words of beginning. These 25 words carry the quality of starts, of things coming into being, of first moments, of the particular feeling of something that has not yet been. Word 251, Genesis. Definition: the origin or mode of formation of something. What it carries: the most fundamental of all beginnings. The genesis of something is where it came from, its very first cause. The word carries both the fascination of origin stories and their importance. Example: the genesis of the project lay in a conversation so casual that nobody remembered it had been the beginning of everything. Repeat: genesis. Word 252, nascent. Definition: just coming into existence and beginning to display signs of future potential. What it carries: the particular tenderness of the very new. Something nascent is not yet what it will be. It is in its earliest stage of becoming. The word asks for patience and care. Example: the nascent relationship needed time and space. Neither of them rushed it. Repeat: nascent. Word 253, inception. Definition: the establishment or starting point of something. What it carries: the formal moment of beginning. An inception is a deliberate start, a beginning that is recognized as a beginning. The word carries intention and marks the official commencement of something. Example: from the inception of the organization, the founding principles had been clear. Whether they had been maintained was another question. Repeat: inception. Word 254, embryonic. Definition: in a rudimentary stage with potential for development. What it carries: potential not yet realized. Something embryonic has everything it needs to become, but has not yet become it. The word asks for protection of what is fragile and promising. Example: the idea was still embryonic. It needed time before it was ready to be shared or tested. Repeat: embryonic. Word 255, primordial. Definition: existing at or from the beginning of time. What it carries: the deepest of all origins. Something primordial predates not just human memory, but human existence. The word carries awe before what is ancient beyond comprehension. Example: There was something primordial about standing on that coastline. The rock beneath her feet was older than anything she could meaningfully imagine. Repeat. Primordial. Word 256. Inauguration. Definition. The beginning or introduction of a new system, policy, or period. What it carries. A beginning marked by ceremony. An inauguration is not just a start. It is a start that is formally recognized and celebrated. The word carries both the excitement of the new and the solemnity of the occasion. Example: the inauguration of the new program was celebrated more quietly than expected, but the impact was anything but quiet. Repeat. Inauguration. Word 257. Pristine. Definition. In its original condition, immaculately clean and fresh. What it carries. A beginning that has not yet been touched. Something pristine is as close to its original state as possible. The word carries both the beauty of the untouched and the slight tension of something that cannot remain this way. Example: the pristine landscape would not look this way for long. Development was planned, but today it was extraordinary. Repeat. Pristine. Word 258. Catalytic. Definition. Relating to or acting as a catalyst. What it carries. The power to cause change without being changed. A catalytic event or person triggers something much larger than themselves. The word carries the particular excitement of the thing that sets everything else in motion. Example: the meeting was catalytic. Nothing was the same after it, for any of them. Repeat. Catalytic. Word 259. Foundational. Definition. Serving as a basis underlying something. What it carries. The importance of what comes first. Foundational things are not impressive. They're fundamental. They carry the whole structure. The word carries the quiet authority of what everything else is built on. Example: the early training had been foundational. Everything she did later was built on what she had learned in those first years. Repeat. Foundational. Word 260. Germinal. Definition. In the earliest stage of development. Productive of new ideas. What it carries. The generative power of the beginning. Something germinal contains within it the seeds of everything it will become. The word carries potential and asks you to take seriously what is still small. Example: the essay was written in what turned out to be the germinal period of an entire new field of study. Repeat. Germinal. Word 261. Originary. Definition. Of or constituting the origin. What it carries. The authority of the first. An originary moment or source is the one from which everything flows. The word carries the philosophical weight of questions about where things truly begin. Example: the originary impulse behind all his work had been, simply, the desire to understand one question he had asked himself at 20. Repeat. Originary. Word 262. Elemental. Definition. Primary or essential. Of the four elements. What it carries. Beginning at the level of what cannot be reduced further. Something elemental is not decorated or complex. It is first and fundamental. Example: the story had an elemental quality. Strip away everything, and what remained was irreducibly human. Repeat. Elemental. Word 263. Inaugural. Definition. Marking the beginning of a new venture or institution. First in a series. What it carries. The honor of being first. An inaugural event carries the particular significance of what sets the tone for everything that follows. Example. The inaugural performance set a standard that the company spent years trying to match. Repeat. Inaugural. Word 264. Fledgling. Definition. A young bird that has just fledged. A person or organization that is immature or inexperienced. What it carries. Newness combined with vulnerability. A fledgling thing is beginning to find its wings, hopeful and exposed in equal measure. The word asks for both encouragement and protection. Example. The fledgling organization needed time and resources before it could demonstrate what it was capable of. Repeat. Fledgling. Word 265. Budding. Definition. Beginning to develop or show signs of promise. What it carries. The optimism of becoming. A budding writer. A budding relationship. The word carries the warmth of recognizing something in its early stage and believing in its potential. Example. She was already a budding talent at 16. Everyone who saw her work said the same thing. Repeat. Budding. Word 266. Originate. Definition. Have a specified beginning. Give rise to. What it carries. The act of coming into being from a source. Something that originates arrives from somewhere specific. The word asks about roots and causes and the places where things begin. Example. The tradition originated in a single family's ritual and had spread, over generations, into something much larger. Repeat. Originate. Word 267. Prototype. Definition. A first or preliminary version of a device from which other forms are developed. What it carries. The original version that all others will follow. A prototype is not perfect. It is first. And firstness is its particular value. It carries the courage of being the thing that has never been done. Example. The prototype was rough, but it demonstrated the principle with complete clarity. That was all that mattered at this stage. Repeat. Prototype. Word 268. Seminal. Definition. Strongly influencing later developments. What it carries. The beginning that made everything else possible. A seminal work or moment is not just important. It is the source from which a whole field or movement grew. The word carries the retrospective recognition of how much depended on a single beginning. Example. The paper is now recognized as seminal. At the time, it was ignored. That is how it usually works. Repeat. Seminal. Word 269. Conception. Definition. The action of conceiving a child. The forming of a plan or idea. What it carries. The moment at which something comes into being as an idea. From conception to completion, the word marks the very first moment of a new thing in the mind. Everything that follows was made possible by this. Example. From its very conception, the project had been ambitious in a way that made ordinary people nervous. Repeat. Conception. Word 270. Kindle. Definition. Light or set on fire. arouse or inspire. What it carries. The moment of starting. To kindle something is to bring it into life from a state of potential. A kindled flame. A kindled interest. A kindled hope. The word carries the magic of the moment something catches. Example. The lecture kindled something in her that had been dormant for years. She left it a different person than the one who had walked in. Repeat. Kindle. Word 271. Inaugural. Definition. The first of its kind. What it carries. The pride and responsibility of precedent. Example. The inaugural cohort set a tone that all subsequent groups would find themselves measuring themselves against. Repeat. Inaugural. Word 272. Pioneer. Definition. A person who is among the first to explore or settle a new country or area. Develop or be the first to use or apply. What it carries. The dignity and difficulty of being first. A pioneer does not have a map. They are making the path. The word carries courage and the particular loneliness of going where no one has gone. Example. She was, by any measure, a pioneer in her field. Whatever came after was built on what she had established. Repeat. Pioneer. Word 273. Unfurl. Definition. Make or become spread out from a rolled or folded state. What it carries. The slow revealing of what was previously contained. Something that unfurls opens gradually, petal by petal, flag by flag. The word carries patience and the pleasure of gradual disclosure. Example. The plan unfurled over months rather than arriving complete. Each stage revealed the next. Repeat. Unfurl. Word 274. Spark. Definition. A small fiery particle, a trace of a specified quality. Ignite. What it carries. The smallest possible beginning of the largest possible fire. A spark is what everything starts from, the minimum necessary for everything else. The word carries the excitement of potential ignition. Example. The idea had begun as nothing more than a spark, a half sentence at the end of a long meeting that nobody fully heard. Repeat. Spark. Word 275. Dawn. Definition. The first appearance of light in the sky before sunrise. The beginning of a phenomenon or period. What it carries. The most universal of all beginnings. Dawn is the moment at which darkness ends and possibility begins. The word carries hope. Not the aggressive hope of daytime, but the quiet, gradual hope of light returning. Example. She woke before dawn and lay in the dark, thinking about what the day was going to require of her. Repeat. Dawn. 275 words. 11 categories. One final category remains, and it is the most important one of all. Category 12. Words of ending. These final 25 words carry the quality of endings, of things concluding, of farewells, of the particular beauty and grief of things that are over. In English, as in all languages, the words for ending are among the most resonant and the most carried. Word 276. Dénouement. Definition. The final part of a play, film, or narrative in which the strands of the plot are drawn together and matters are resolved. What it carries? The satisfaction and the grief of resolution. A denouement brings things to their conclusion, but the word is aware that conclusion always carries both relief and loss. The story is over. Example: the denouement came quietly, not with drama, which made it, in the end, far more moving than anything dramatic could have been. Repeat. Denouement. Word 277. Epilogue. Definition: a section at the end of a book, a speech at the end of a play. What it carries? What comes after the ending? An epilogue is what remains when the main story is over. It speaks from after the resolution, sometimes explaining, sometimes simply being present for a little while longer. Example: the epilogue was unnecessary but welcome. It gave you time to leave the story's world rather than simply dropping you. Repeat. Epilogue. Word 278. Terminus. Definition: the end or final point of something, a railway or bus terminus. What it carries? The absolute end. A terminus is not a waypoint. It is where things stop. The word carries both the practical and the philosophical weight of arriving at the furthest point. Example: every line of thought she pursued seemed to arrive at the same terminus, the same unanswerable question. Repeat. Terminus. Word 279. Valediction. Definition: the action of saying farewell. What it carries? Farewell as an act. A valediction is not just goodbye. It is the formal acknowledgement of parting. The word carries both the warmth of the recognition and the sadness of the separation. Example: his valediction at the end of his final lecture was brief. He had never been a man for sentiment, but the room felt it anyway. Repeat. Valediction. Word 280. Dissolution. Definition: the closing down of an assembly. Decomposition. What it carries? The formal ending of something constituted. What dissolves has become something else, or nothing. The word gives formal dignity to endings. Example: the dissolution of the company was handled without public statement. One day it existed, then it did not. Repeat. Dissolution. Word 281. Elegiac. Definition: relating to or characteristic of an elegy, pleasingly sad or mournful. What it carries? Beauty found in grief. An elegiac quality is the ability to mourn something and find the mourning itself beautiful. The word carries the particular English love of beautiful sadness. Example: there was an elegiac quality to the last season of the show. It knew it was ending and let that knowledge be felt. Repeat. Elegiac. Word 282. Closure. Definition: a feeling that an emotional or traumatic experience has been resolved. What it carries? The thing that is sought and rarely fully found. Closure is the word for what people look for when something ends badly or incompletely. The word carries both the longing and the acknowledgement that it may not fully come. Example: she was not sure she had found closure exactly, but she had found something that made the present livable. That was enough. Repeat. Closure. Word 283. Culmination. Definition: the highest or final point, especially after a long process. What it carries: the arrival at the top. A culmination is an ending that is also an achievement, the point to which everything has been leading. The word carries both the exhaustion of the ascent and the satisfaction of the view. Example: the concert was the culmination of 3 years of work. Sitting in the audience, she could barely believe they had arrived here. Repeat. Culmination. Word 284. Obsolescence. Definition: the process of becoming obsolete or outdated. What it carries: the slow ending of usefulness. Something obsolescent is in the process of becoming obsolete, not yet finished, but clearly on its way. The word carries the particular sadness of watching something become irrelevant. Example: the technology had been revolutionary a decade ago. Now it was approaching obsolescence with remarkable speed. Repeat. Obsolescence. Word 285. Finality. Definition: the fact of something being final, irrevocable, and complete. What it carries: the weight of what cannot be undone. Finality is the quality of endings that know themselves to be endings. The word carries the particular gravity of the irreversible. Example: the finality of the decision took some time to settle. Once it had, there was a strange kind of peace in it. Repeat. Finality. Word 286. Requiem. Definition: a mass for the repose of the souls of the dead, a solemn chant for the dead. What it carries: music as mourning. A requiem is grief given formal, beautiful shape. The word carries the idea that the most important things deserve to be honored properly, and that music is among the best ways to do it. Example: the piece functioned as a requiem for an entire way of life rather than simply a single person. The audience understood. Repeat. Requiem. Word 287. Waning. Definition: having passed full development and now declining. What it carries: the beauty of diminishment. A waning moon is still the moon, still beautiful, but moving away from its fullness. The word carries neither despair nor resignation, just the awareness of natural cycles. Example: interest in the subject had been waning for years before anyone thought to acknowledge it publicly. Repeat. Waning. Word 288. Penultimate. Definition: last but one in a series. What it carries: the special quality of almost last. The penultimate chapter. The penultimate day. The word carries the bittersweet awareness of being very close to the end. Example: the penultimate session had a particular quality that the final one would not. Everyone knew what was coming, and so the present moment was especially precious. Repeat. Penultimate. Word 289. Obsolete. Definition: no longer produced or used. Out of date. What it carries: the sadness of things that have been surpassed. Something obsolete was once useful, once new, once necessary. Now it is not. The word carries the particular melancholy of things that were superseded. Example: The skill had become largely obsolete with the arrival of new technology. Those who had mastered it had to find new ways to be useful. Repeat. Obsolete. Word 290. Elegy. Definition. A poem of serious reflection, typically a lament for the dead. What it carries. The art form of grief. An elegy transforms loss into beauty, not to deny the grief, but to honor what is lost by making something beautiful out of the mourning. Example. The final paragraph was an elegy for the version of the city that no longer existed. Repeat. Elegy. Word 291. Coda. Definition. A concluding passage of a piece of music. A concluding event or series of events. What it carries. The ending that adds something final. A coda is what comes after what seemed to be the end. A final statement. A final gesture. A final note. It carries the awareness that some endings need a little more. Example. The conversation had a coda that neither of them had planned. It made everything that preceded it suddenly clear. Repeat. Coda. Word 292. Afterglow. Definition. Light remaining in the sky after the sun has set. Good feelings remaining after a pleasant experience. What it carries. The lingering warmth of something that is over. An afterglow is what remains when the thing itself is finished. Not the thing, but its echo. It carries both the loss and the warmth. Example. They sat in the afterglow of the evening for a long time. Nobody wanted to be the one to say it was time to go. Repeat. Afterglow. Word 293. Decrescendo. Definition. A gradual decrease in loudness in a piece of music. What it carries. A beautiful diminishment. Something that decrescendos does not end suddenly. It reduces, gradually, to quiet. The word carries the grace of the gradual ending, the diminishment that is itself a kind of music. Example. The conversation had a natural decrescendo after the difficult part was over. The last hour was very quiet and very calm. Repeat. Decrescendo. Word 294. Dispersal. Definition. The action or process of distributing things over a wide area. The splitting up of a group. What it carries. The ending of gathering. A dispersal is what happens when people or things that were together go their separate ways. The word carries both the natural quality of this and its particular sadness. Example. The dispersal of the group happened gradually over the years after they all finished university. It was the natural order. It was still strange. Repeat. Dispersal. Word 295. Recede. Definition. Go or move back or further away. Gradually diminish. What it carries. The moving away of something. When things recede, they do not end suddenly. They move back, become smaller, become distant. The word carries the particular feeling of watching something withdraw. Example. As the train moved out of the station, the city receded behind her. She did not look away until she could no longer see it. Repeat. Recede. Word 296. Subsidence. Definition. The gradual caving in or sinking of an area of land. the settling of a feeling, what it carries, the settling that follows upheaval. Subsidence is what happens after the dramatic event, the gradual returning to level. The word carries both the relief of settling and the awareness of permanent change. Example: there was an emotional subsidence in the weeks after the decision. The energy of conflict had simply worn itself out. Repeat: subsidence. Word 297, attrition. Definition: the process of reducing strength through sustained attack or pressure. Reduction through gradual wearing down. What it carries: endings through exhaustion rather than decisive moment. Attrition does not win through a single decisive blow. It wins through outlasting. The word carries the grinding quality of sustained difficulty. Example: the partnership ended through attrition rather than any single moment of rupture. Everyone simply ran out of the energy required to continue. Repeat: attrition. Word 298, sundering. Definition: splitting apart. What it carries: a separation that is definitive and total. A sundering is not a gentle parting, it is a splitting. The word carries force and permanence. Example: the sundering of the community along political lines had happened so completely that the previous unity seemed, in retrospect, almost fictional. Repeat: sundering. Word 299, surrender. Definition: give up or hand over. Yield to an opponent or superior force. What it carries: the particular courage of the giving up. Surrender in English carries complex weight. It is both defeat and release. To surrender is to stop fighting. Sometimes that is the bravest and wisest thing a person can do. Example: she had been fighting the grief rather than allowing herself to feel it. When she finally surrendered to it, the healing began. Repeat: surrender. Word 300, aftermath. Definition: the consequences or after effects of a significant, unpleasant event. What it carries: the world that exists after the thing. An aftermath is not the ending, it is what the ending left behind. The word carries the particular experience of living in the wake of something that has passed, but whose effects have not. Example: in the aftermath of the decision, the organization had to rebuild itself from a starting point none of them had chosen. Repeat: aftermath. Closing. 300 words, 12 categories. And we have reached the end of this masterclass together. I want to sit with you here for a moment before you close this lesson, because what we have done today is not ordinary. We have not just covered vocabulary. We have moved through the full landscape of a human life expressed in English. We began with light, the words that illuminate. We moved through time and connection and loss. We walked through change and texture and sound. We inhabited spaces. We reached for truth with our hands. We felt the body and its particular knowledge. We stood at the threshold of beginnings. And we arrived, as all things must, at endings. 300 words. And each one carries more than its definition. Each one, when used at the right moment in the right sentence, does something that no other word can do. That is why native speakers choose them, not because they are correct, but because they are true. Now here is what I want you to do before you close this lesson. Go back through the 12 categories and find the 30 words that resonated most deeply with you today. Not the most useful, the most alive. The ones that made you stop and think. The ones that gave you a feeling as you heard them. Write them down. Say each one out loud 5 times, and then use at least 3 of them today, in a sentence, in a conversation, in a message, in your journal, or simply out loud to yourself. Let them live in your voice. Because here is the truth about these words. They do not belong to native speakers. They belong to anyone who has the courage to feel them and the commitment to use them. You have done the first part today. The second part begins now. This channel publishes a brand new English lesson every single day. If today's lesson gave you something real and something you will carry with you, please subscribe now and press the bell icon so you never miss what comes next. And if this masterclass moved you in the way I hope it did, please give it a like and share it with someone who loves the English language the way that you do. This lesson was made for exactly that person. Before you go, please subscribe to English in Moments and press the bell icon so you never miss a new lesson. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for spending this extraordinary time with me today. I'm Elena from English in Moments, and I will see you in the very next lesson.